Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the 8th day of July 2024, and welcome to our show today. So I've been realizing that we have a need to expand a little bit because I've got so many people who need their voices heard that I'm getting lots of contacts. So today we're going to have a 3-hour show. First hour is Karen the Riveter and Ralph the IT guy. Jeff Bongiorno, who's normally here, is doing he's got a real estate closing. He was trying to sell his condo. You remember where they were trying to fry him with the 5G on the roof. So he's doing that today. And then second hour is United Sovereign Americans, which is Marley Hornik. And she's going to be coming on today with Tim Vetter, who has worked with Election Integrity Force in the state. He was working with them, Election Integrity Force. And so they're going to show some of the things that they're working on right now. And then after that, the third hour is a gal named Melissa Friesel. And I'm really interested to hear what she says because she does a lot of digging on the border crisis, human trafficking, and the migrant crisis. So we'll see where this goes today. So just so you know, we're gonna try to get going here. Ralph just told me that the video is glitching out a little bit already, but I'm not seeing the glitches on my side. So we'll see what's happening. They certainly do not want any of our information out there. That's for sure. And they start causing problems when they do. And so that's where we're at today. So I'm gonna bring on Ralph and Karen. How you guys doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm pretty good. I'm just a little tired. I was up late last night canning.
Hey, how'd that go? Because I got to tell you, we'll get what's new in our lives type things going on. How'd your canning go?
Well, this is my second time canning, thanks to Donna, but my first time with my brand new canner, and I'm using the same one, the same model, and
Digital
everything.
canner.
Yep, it's a Presto, and everything went perfectly fine except it took a long time to cool. So I was up until 1:15 waiting for that pin to drop.
Yeah, it does take quite. It's about a 4-hour cycle, but you don't. Unlike the weighted ones, you don't have to stand there and watch it every minute. Therein is the difference. But no matter how you can, it's whether it's a digital canner or a pressure canner for those foods that need the enzymes deactivated. That's why you can with pressure canning. You can do the water bath canners on high acid or high sugar type things like say tomatoes or your jams, jellies, fruits, that sort of thing. It can be water bath canned, but when it's a pressure canner, you have to go through. It's just going to take a little time. But the weighted one, you have to sit there and watch the gauge. So, and if it drops under 15 pounds of pressure, you got to start all over again. So the digital canner, you push it, you put the jars in, you push it, you push the advance button about 3 or 4 times. It asks you to do something, and after that, you're done. You just kind of go do something else, but you don't have to sit there riveted to it,
Yeah. Well, I did as Donna taught me. Except I did one thing different because as I asked you about the instructions from the canner said not to add water to the packed poultry. So I did that to see how it would turn out because we did add water, and I guess it works both ways.
It does. But, you know why we added, you asked me why we added water, when you texted me last night. You said, why do we add water to the directions say not to do it? Because you don't want to have empty space in the jar. And so you don't want to have a lot of empty space. And when you and I did it, we did whole pieces of chicken that had the bone in it and everything. So unless we had cut it up and packed it in there tight, we were going to need something to fill the spaces a little bit. And I don't really mind it because then when you get ready to eat it, you can throw it in a pan, heat it up a little bit, pull your meat out after a few minutes of heating it up because it's fully cooked. So you just have to warm up temperature and you can make gravy or whatever else you want with the stock. It's the same thing if you want to throw that in to make soup. You just pull all the meat off the bones, make it chop it or shred it or whatever you want to do, and then you could throw that broth in with your soup, and it makes a real good hearty broth. So either way is correct.
Yes, it has a little bit more empty space, I think, at the top, but I won't know until this afternoon if they've all sealed or not. If I have to do it over on any of them, I'll add water a little bit maybe, but
they should already be sealed. If you stopped at 1 o'clock last night, the jar should have cooled up.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I'm pretty sure they have. But I think probably I would add a little water and then get the bubbles out of it. But I guess other way works.
Yeah, there you go.
Because it looks pretty good to me, but what do
So I got to
know?
tell you what my day started. So I, we do horses, and I have 2 horses that I really wanted to breed with it for a baby, because I don't remember how many years ago we lost a baby from these 2 horses, and it was really sad. It's called the dystocia pregnancy, where they get stuck in the birth canal, and they're supposed to jump through. Okay. So they're supposed to jump their way out. Front feet, head, body, back feet, and the last thing to come out is the back feet, right? Well, this one, it was really precious. The nose came out and the feet came out, and she was having a little time with it, but she was a maiden mare. It's her first delivery. And so, you don't really know how it's going to go at that point in time. And so, but all of a sudden we see a back foot coming out next to the head.
Oh no.
Which meant that the legs were kind of trapped back behind the pelvis. And I got to pet the baby's nose when it was alive, but within 15 minutes it had died within her. And we ended up spending 2 hours trying to get the baby out. And it was horrible, because we almost lost the mom and the baby. I mean, I remember her looking up at me, and her pupils were really big, and she was in fact saying goodbye. And then they ended up putting a cattle jack on her, because there's no other way to get that foal out at that point in time. And the baby came out, and all of a sudden she just came right back to life. All the stress was off of her body, and she got up. So anyhow, we're doing a little differently this time. So last night the vet called, and he was really excited. He's like, she's got a 34 millimeter follicle that's ready, or an ovum that's ready to, or an egg that's ready to progress. And so he said, we need the stallion here in the morning. And I'm like, oh, I've got my broadcast. So I'm like, we're gonna have to see what we can do. Can you have somebody there at 7:30? So anyhow, I got up this morning, got the stallion's legs wrapped, and got him in the trailer and such. And then we took off. And so I was out of here pretty early this morning. And so I'm kind of like, I was up late last night trying to get everything finished, and then I was up early this morning getting him on the trailer and getting him out there, so that what they're going to do with him is he is a good one to collect standing, so they can collect. You really have a lot of threat when horses do live coverage breeding. There's a lot of injuries that can happen. So what they're going to do is they're going to collect semen, and then they'll artificially inseminate the mare. And then that way they don't have any problems getting a little rough in their little love fest there, because that does happen. And then they're going to flush the embryo out after about 14 days, and we're going to put it in a recipient mare that's bigger than her, so that we have the ability to have wider hips and carry that baby to full term. And so that's a real normal thing to do when you're doing horses. A lot of people do artificial insemination, and then they use a larger recipient mare that will carry it, nurse it, and then as soon as you separate it, then they go their own way. But anyhow, that was my morning this morning. But the funniest part of it was the stallion, who loves our barn. All right, this stallion is happy. He's home. He's happy. He's a happy guy, right? So I take him out, I wrap his legs, and we head over to the trailer, and he looks at me and he's like, "You're kidding me, right? Bad things happen when I leave this barn." He goes, "No, don't make me go." And he doesn't like his nose kissed like a lot of the horses do. He put his face right up here like this, like going, like, please kiss my nose. I'll be a good boy. We got him on the.
I'll do anything.
I'll do anything. Don't make me go. I know bad things happen, like with doctors and vets when I leave. He doesn't realize he's gonna
have a good time.
He's gonna have a nice couple of days here. So at any rate, it was pretty funny. There was somebody there next to me that was saying, "Buddy, just jump on the trailer. You're going clubbing." So we got him over there. He actually, he of course recognized the mare, because she's in our barn too, and at the vets. And so they both perked up looking at each other like, "Friends, my family's here." And so and they love that. I mean, it's really sweet. They know their babies. They know the horses in their herd, and it's comforting for them to be together. So that was my morning so far. And now I'm here. So you talked about something that was really interesting this morning about helping people. And this is weird because I was thinking about this on the way back. I was thinking about how hurt people are. And I'm like, we've got to figure out a way to help people get their brains back because people are losing it. And there's a few things I want to talk about.
I was talking to my husband about this yesterday, and he's been watching he watched the debate, he watched the interview, and he's not usually into the political realm. He's not paying attention. It's not his lane. And even he was like, "Oh, this is he's figuring it out," and it's been really kind of prompted some interesting conversations here. But
I'll bet.
I told him, I said, a lot of people are seeing what's happening there, and they're going to struggle emotionally with this because now they're starting to realize that things aren't what they thought they were. They've been betrayed. There's a great hurt there. There's a lot of confusion. A lot of fear comes with that. If you believe that you've been tricked into thinking that Biden was able to handle things, and now you know that he wasn't. He was seeing a Parkinson's doctor for the last year. All these people that are close to him know that he hasn't been capable. So who's been in charge of this country? The whole country has been deceived. The world's been deceived. We've been at risk. And now moving forward, we might be headed toward war. Our country's being invaded. We have a guy over on the other side, the rightful president of the United States, who's saying everything's going to be okay. And he's saying it as often and in as many ways as he possibly can. But the people who don't trust him yet are struggling with the pain and the frustration and maybe the guilt that they believed Biden. And
yeah, because it's
the
hard to
sky
admit
is
when
falling.
you're wrong for most people and say, well, I was wrong, because it makes them feel vulnerable, like they were stupid. It makes them feel stupid. Okay.
Yeah.
But the problem is it's really stupid if you don't, take in alternative information and say, well, I didn't know this 2 minutes ago, and this changes everything. Because we're not God. We don't know everything. And we have to be able to be okay with that and say, you know what, this is what I believe to be true right now. But if there's other information that comes up, we have to be able to assess it. And I'm not saying jump at every piece of knowledge or piece of information that comes out there, because there's a lot of people lying. In fact, everybody's lying. That's my stand on, is there's pretty much everybody out there is bending the truth just a little bit. Okay, whether they're good guys or we think of them as good guys or bad guys, it doesn't matter. We're in a war, and a war is about deception. So if you think you're going to get the truth from anybody, I got another thought. I got a lot of news for you, because there's very few people that have just played the screw it card and have thrown down and said, I am going to tell the truth as I see it, where I am right now. I'm going to tell the truth to the best of my ability. Now, if there's more information that's coming out, doesn't mean I'm a liar. It doesn't mean that I change that I changed my stance on something that was so much. I had one gal texted me last night, and she's kind of got some communication. Her interpersonal skills aren't very good, just put it that way. And so instead of trying to make it a win-win, it's all about frying the people around her. And so at first I was just like, I was busy doing something else, and I'm like, man, get a life. But then I thought, what really needs to happen here? What really needs to happen is a civil conversation with somebody who's clearly in trauma and is busting out against every single person that they see. Horses do that. If they feel threatened or abused, they will kick or bite or try to hurt anyone around them so that they can't be hurt again. That's what we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
And so I was, she was like, you're such a disappointment. You're a disappointment to so many of us out there, because you stand with the 501c3s. You're a witch like Whitmer. You're not a true Christian. And I'm like, I had to think this through a little bit. And I'm like, how am I going to respond to this to her? First of all, without just saying, where the hell have you been for the last 2 years that I've been talking? It's like
Yeah.
clearly, clearly you're a little behind on the information flow here. So this morning I got up and I texted her and I'm like, where did you get the idea that I am for 501c3s? Anybody that knows me and has listened has said these things are one of the ways that they're cheating the system. They're money laundering. There's no such thing as a nonprofit. It's just they can't show a profit on the balance sheet. So all the profits go to them and their little buddies. That's what happens. And they'll build businesses off to the side, and they pay those businesses to get it off the books of the primary money raising organization. So anyhow, I'm waiting for a response right now, but she basically said that I'm a Satanist and that I'm not a true Christian. And a true Christian would embrace all the prophets out there, the ones that she likes. Well, I follow God, and I don't have a cult-like hero worship for anyone. I look at people and how they perform. I look at things that I'm not looking for perfect people, because there is no such thing. There's only one perfect, and that's Jesus. That's it. End of story. But the rest of us are somewhere in the middle, and we make good choices, and sometimes we don't make such good choices. But you can always tell what the motivation is, because truth is always truth. And if people are willing to change and say, I'm sorry, I made a huge mistake. And that's why I've got fried for talking to everybody like Kennedy. I talked to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I like the guy. He's a nice guy. And he is the only politician that stood up and said, I really thought I was doing the right thing by welcoming people into the country and helping them. He said, we have created one of the greatest humanitarian disasters in the history of the United States. And I'm like, that takes a big person to step up and say that, and not be stuck on their image or not be stuck on what people think of them, but say, I was wrong, and then go ahead and try to correct it. So now I've got people saying, look at what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did. He's a communist. He's a this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, perhaps he's a little off base on things. And I agree with that. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but there's some things that when you're talking to people, you're not looking for somebody to worship. You're looking for somebody to do a job, and then you can put them in check when they do the wrong thing. The law's on our side. So I don't understand why everybody seems to have to make this personality club. If you don't believe in everything that I believe in, then I'm going to just like off with your head and I'll never talk to you again. We have a problem when we see that.
Yeah.
Because when's the next person going to piss you off that you're going to run away from and say, well, no, they thought they were a good person, but they're a bad person. I'm never going to talk to them again. It's like, this is like childish. It's bizarre.
Well, and how are you ever going to elect anyone effective if you're only looking for perfection?
Yeah.
In your eyes.
And what is that? It's determined by an individual at that point, instead of what's the job, who's the best suited for it. Okay. Best suited for Attorney General, in my opinion, is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's got an axe to grind because they killed his family. The global crime syndicate did. So he's got an axe to grind against the people that committed crimes against people that he loved. Same thing with General Flynn. General Flynn's got a little bit of an axe to grind, and he's rightfully so. He knows who attacked him and his family. And
so you don't want Kamala to be AG?
No, and hell no.
See, I've been laughing. That's the thing. When number one,
It's absurd. It's so absurd.
Number one, when your faith is in God and you know that no matter what happens moving forward, what's the worst that can happen? You can die. Okay.
Yeah, so what?
If you know that what happens to you when you die, then you've got nothing to worry about. Mm-hmm. If you're okay with it anyway. If you're worried about where you're going to go after you die, then you still have a problem. But if your faith is where it should be, then the worst fear, besides public speaking for some people, which I don't have a problem with, is that you could die And if you got that in hand, then you've got nothing else to fear. And then
Yeah,
you
you
can
want to
look at the
threaten me with going to
situation.
the biggest party that's ever existed?
Right, right. Going to heaven, and that's a bad thing. Why? I don't understand this, you know.
So
But I think
yeah,
it is because people don't have that real faith that that it's going to be okay. God is in charge. He's always in charge. He's always good all the time, and He's allowing things to happen. And you know, there's a lot of people that have had horrible things happen in their lives, you know, like different diagnoses, different things that are have caused them a lot of pain, abuse, suffering, all that sort of thing. Well, we nobody gets away from this life without having some of that. And I believe that all things good and the things that we perceive as good and the things that we perceive are bad are always bad, because if God allows it to happen, He's going to use it like manure and watch a flower garden grow. And it's not that He wants it to happen, but there's certain growth that happens to us or that makes us change when bad things happen. I have been praying for years that this whole system flatlines. I'm not kidding you. I hope this whole thing just absolutely flatlines. Now, would that be comfortable? No, not for a while, but people are going to have to figure it out a little bit and work with each other, instead of saying, well, I'm not going to stand with this person because I don't like what they say about, I don't know, get my oil changed somewhere, or you know, what kind of food I eat, or what this neighbor's doing, and dividing up into teams. It's absurd. It's so stupid. It's like, what's your personal goal for the nation? Take it back? Then you better be willing to talk with everyone, whether they agree with you or not, whether they're in your church or not, whether they're following the prophets that you watch or not, or whatever. I really did think that not following the prophets that this person claims to be God's prophets, and I'm you know, out of line, has anything to do with their salvation. I'm pretty extra sure the only thing God ever mentioned was believing on the Lord Jesus Christ and you will be saved. That's it. Pretty simple. Accept
I
His
think
gift.
one of the things I mentioned to my husband this weekend is this fear that comes out of what people have been seeing in the last week or so is that if we if our country is going to fall apart, nuclear war, whatever it might be, the realization of that is starting to hit people, and they're starting to see the risk to them personally. It's not just about, well, the economy is getting a little harder for me right now. It's, oh my gosh, there could be invaders in my yard someday, you know, and it won't take very long. You know, they're starting to see crimes across the country happening in daylight in public places or in people's homes. What if that could happen to me? Those things are becoming more of a personal hitting reality, and that is creating a lot of fear. And it's also creating this fear of, how am I going to sustain myself and my family if a grid goes down, for example. Um, you have been talking about that for some time. So I blame what's happening with me in my life on Donna Brandenburg. Because
Oh
you
no,
said,
not Donna Brandenburg again. How, you know,
Donna
God help
says,
us all. She's worse than
Donna
God's
says,
zero.
you should grow some microgreens. And I had looked at it, I tried microgreens, and I actually never pulled the trigger on that. Instead, what you also said was, everybody should have a garden if you can. Do what you can do. And we talked about it for a while. I started researching, he started researching. Now we have a garden. And then I started, well, I like petunias. Now I have flowers all over the place. And I have flowering plants that are not medicinal, but they are just for my pleasure and joy all over. And yesterday, no, day before yesterday, this weekend, I collected some of the plants from our property and a little from my herb garden. And I started doing two other things that I've never done before. And I now have a tincture started, and I have an infusion started to make salve with. these are plants that I was going to pull out of the yard just because I don't want them there where they're growing. They're going to get mowed over or they're going to get pulled. But I have learned to identify about 24 plants in the last week or so that are growing on my property. And some of them have medicinal purposes. So I started to say, you know, do I want to try to use them? I don't need to use them for my medicinal use, maybe, but maybe in the future. And I won't have them in the wintertime. So would it be useful to me to harvest them now? Well, that's adding to the business on my plate, but I'm learning the process of it, which is something I've never done before. I'm stepping out of my comfort zone in so many ways. It's exhausting, but I'm also finding a lot of joy in it. And at the same time, we're studying Ecclesiastes in church. And one of the principles in that is that everybody dies. The rain falls on the just and the unjust. What you should do is find the joy in your work. And that is where I am right now. I'm having a lot of challenges, but I'm finding joy there. And that joy is combating any fears that I have about what is going on in the rest of the world. It's combating the negativity that other people are throwing out. I got results of blood testing recently, and my serotonin levels were so good, he said it was some of the highest he's ever seen. Because I've been getting my hands and feet in the dirt, and I've been enjoying the natural work around the house and the yard. And I'm offering this to continue what Donna had started with. Everyone can prepare in their own way, in their own skill set. You can expand on that. But if you take a step in that direction, you combat the fear too. It's very helpful and settling, and it's very rewarding to me that I now have jars full of chicken on my counter that I canned myself from our own chickens.
And
it's very satisfactory.
It's so empowering. And see, when you have knowledge gives you a certain amount of power. When you have faith, you've got all the power in the world. But when you learn to do things, you don't have to be afraid of somebody cutting your supply line because you just don't freaking care. Okay. I just threw this up right now. This was the horse that we lost the foal with. She wasn't at our barn at this point in time, but it was at a different barn where I made a hop to this barn in order to move around a little bit. And boy, it's been a long time since I've seen that feed right there. But we kept cameras. We keep cameras in the stalls and such, so we can keep an eye on them at all times. But it's kind of relaxing. This is from 2017, and I thought that would be interesting for people to see that that's what we do. But anyhow, going back to what you said, Karen, is that when you do have skills, like if you know how to do farming, okay, use up the food. I don't give a crap, because you know what? I can forage for whatever I need. I made it a life goal to know where all the poisons and all of the vitamins were and what you would use for what. It's really not that difficult, people. You can eat a lot of things that are out there. And most of our weeds were actually brought over as agricultural crops. Yep. Try to get rid of purslane. You can't. Well, it's got higher in nutrients than spinach. And if you're out of vitamin C, people panic about vitamin C and getting that. Well, guess what? Spruce trees, if you make a tea out of the needles in a spruce, it's high concentrations of A and C. So there's other ways of doing things. You don't have to be afraid. And when we go into battle like this, where we absolutely need to make changes in order to right things, whose fault is it? It's all of our fault. Because if we would have stopped this nonsense back in if you're young, I can't say it's entirely your fault, but you know what? Every single one of us has participated in this in some form or another because we didn't know. There was things that we didn't know So it's not a bad thing to say that you learn things when you learn them, and it doesn't mean you're stupid. It's like you're stupid if you don't make the change and say, I didn't know that. I'm not going to get stuck in my opinion of my opinions becoming what I worship and try to defend them, instead of looking for the truth and being strong enough to actually stand for the truth and change to make sure that you're as honest and truthful as possible.
Yeah.
Well, and
I think
this has happened before, you know. This has happened before to pretty much every civilization in history. We're just looking at some of the final stages of the Roman Empire here.
Yeah. You had to bring it up, didn't you? How
bring it up.
All right. Tell everybody why this. We got an inside joke on the Roman Empire. Okay. So tell everybody why we have this, in fact, inside joke on the Roman Empire.
So there was a thing that was going around in memes, I don't know, probably sometime last year, about asking particularly men how often they think of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
And how surprising that was to a lot of women that apparently never thought of the Roman Empire hardly at all.
Ralph, I'm going to tell you, the only time I think of the Roman Empire is when you bring it up. Okay. It's not part of my life. It's like unless I specifically want to know something, I'm like, okay, there's like all kinds of civilizations that have reasons to look into, but it's a little silly, but okay.
Yeah. So, and I was generally in the camp of at the time thinking about the Roman Empire somewhere between daily and probably at the longest 3 times a week. And so much of our current governmental system is based on the Roman Empire. There's so many parallels to be drawn there, and a lot of the problems that we have now, they've happened before exactly the same way during the Roman Empire. The corruption, the rise of it, the fall of it, everything.
So I'll bring it to Donna's thought process.
Once again, this is not my barn. I was boarding there at that time while I was finishing up building my barn. So go ahead.
Donna would think of Mary Poppins' line about "We've been there before."
Yes.
Contrast that with Rome.
Yeah. All roads lead to Rome. There's some truth to that. That's funny. Oh, that's cool. Thank you for passing that and reminding me of that link. That's cool. Oh yeah, let's see what I can do here with I've got that link saved out, so talk amongst yourselves, I'll find it.
Our judicial system really kind of goes back to the book of Judges in the Bible. It's a lot of the core principles to our judicial system go pretty much directly back to that. And then you've got the parliamentary system that was kind of really, we pulled a lot of the executive branch and Congress from kind of a mishmash of the way that they did it in England and in France, and probably even more based on France than England. But both of those go back to it goes back to a combination of the Roman Republic and the Greek democracy systems, both of which failed in their own right. And so they tried to kind of pick the best pieces and parts out of each system and combine them. And, that's how we've got nowadays the federal government is based on a republic system, and then at a local level we've still got a democracy system where you've got direct election of your officials, as well as direct action over some of the proposals and amendments to things. So to say it's 100% or a republic or a 100% democracy, both of those statements are false, because it's a combination of two systems at multiple levels. It just depends on which level of the government that you're talking about.
Well, and when they talk about it, most of the time they're talking the federal level, so that's why
Right.
the confusion comes in.
Yeah.
So here,
and at that level, they're completely wrong, because there's pretty much nothing at the federal level that is handled at a democracy level. It's all a republic at the federal level. It's just when you get down to the very, very local level that it becomes a direct democracy.
I salute you, Ghost Army, and the Ingersoll Lockwood site. I love you guys behind this. I think this is cool. So we're gonna play this a minute.
No sound.
Oh, there's no sound.
Can't hear anything.
Oh, you can't hear it?
Nope.
It's not picking up. Really? Well, that sucks royally. Let's see. I wonder why. Should be coming through the speakers. At least. Hold on. Try it again.
I have a feeling we've been here before.
Can you hear it?
Not even a little.
Are you serious?
It's not even quiet. It's just silent.
Okay, that's weird. It's loud. It's like the speakers are blaring here. All right. Well, fine. Just go to the back then. Diddle-doo, diddle-doo, diddle-doo. Goodbye. So
You try opening it in a different browser, maybe.
yeah, I will try that. That is in Chrome. Goodbye, Chrome. You failed.
While you're doing that really quick, Ralph reminded me, I heard a commercial the other day for, I think it was for the next debate. I wasn't paying attention. It was like in the background. And there was something about, I think it was the debate, and the title of the show is called Democracy 2024. They have to make that word stand out so much.
Democracy.
To title the debate.
Yep. And it is completely false when it's used at a federal level like that.
So funny.
Okay, let's see.
Can
you hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So for whatever reason, it likes Edge. So we like Edge, and Edge is not running commercials on there. So screw YouTube. Here we go. Diddle-doo. Need to have one of those change screens here. But this is what you get, people. Real news for real people, by real people. Where? At the kitchen table. Almost. Not quite this backdrop. So, but that's where I started. So we just decided to take a picture of it, make a backdrops, and we think it's funny. So you're in on the joke.
Winds in the east. Mist coming in. Like something is brewing. About to begin. Can't put me finger on what lies in store. I feel what's to happen. All happened before.
There you go.
About the Roman Empire.
Well, there you go. There's some more one-man band on Mary Poppins.
There's the new soundtrack for BNN. You just never know what you're going to find.
You never really know what's going on here. We just kind of go with the flow, guys. I think that movie is awesome. I really do. I like Mary Poppins just because for a number of things. Worst British accent on the planet.
The problem I have with it is I get the songs stuck in my head and I can't get rid of them.
Yeah. I think the Sister Suffragette song is absolutely hilarious. It's a hilarious song. So very, very funny. But there's a lot of movies and such. I don't watch much movie or TV, but I did when I was younger, because that was my mom and dad's thing. But I chose when I grew up just to say no, I'm kind of done with this stuff, and a lot of things I disagreed with. So I don't know. I probably average one movie maybe a year. That's probably crazy for everybody else, but I just don't watch many movies. So, but so
then you watch the weird ones like Tron.
Yeah. So I've actually watched more than that this year. which is unusual for me, but I did watch Tron. And I very much like Tron 1 and 2. There's a few of them that I like, but I look for meaning in the movies. I look for meanings in movies, not for the storyline. And so, but my brain doesn't work right. Okay. I don't think the way other people do. I'm clearly. But yeah. So there you go. So anyhow, back to helping people cope with things that we're dealing with. I've got a story of a tenant we had to evict. And I'm going to give you a little background. I'm not going to say any names, but I could tell stories on tenant stories, tenant failures. You know, everybody wants to say, oh, landlords are bad. All landlords are bad. No, not really. If you really knew the real story, that we have a muzzle on us on it, we can't say really what happens, because we do protect our tenants, whether we agree with them or we don't agree with them. We still protect them. We protect their anonymity and we protect their privacy. But anyhow, we saw firsthand how people melted down during COVID and were not coping, because we ended up dealing with the problems. Okay. And a lot of them. In fact, we just evicted someone who wasn't a bad tenant before COVID, but during COVID absolutely melted down. And I'm going to tell you what this person devolved into and what they were capable of. This is what happens when people kind of lose their minds. You have the same thing with horses when they're isolated. We are a herd animal. We are a prey animal as opposed to a predator animal. For most of us, the globalists are prey animals, and we're more like, we believe in the good of things. We just want to go and do our lives, and we don't really want to take advantage of people, that sort of thing. But predators aren't the same as we are, and we got to realize that they're different from us. So anyhow, this gentleman decided, he kind of lost his mind a little bit. I kind of feel pretty bad about it. And we had somebody doing work in the building, and he loosened a saw blade in order to intentionally try to hurt someone.
Oh,
this
my.
happens. And I've seen this in more instances, not necessarily the same way, but they find ways to hurt other people just because they feel like they're justified, because they're insulted. They take it personally of something they're upset about, whether it's real or not, or if it's imagined. And then also the neighbor is because I refuse to say the white black bull crap agenda stuff. He's a guy with a better tan than me. Let's just put it that way. And he was out there throwing around racial slurs to him. And this is a very nice man that's owned that house for many, many years. And I like him a lot. He's a good guy. Actually, not only verbally attacked him and threw around the N-word and some other things, but he lost it. He absolutely lost it. And we ended up having to evict him. And I'm sure he thinks we're the worst people on the planet, but I will not tolerate somebody who's just being a jerk, a jackass that just wants to go out there and hurt other people because they think they're entitled, because their poor widow fee-wings got hurt, or they're having trouble coping. You know, the better way to do it is saying, I'm having a trouble here. Could somebody come and sit with me for a while? And not trying to be, trying to be so isolated and perfect that you turn into the monster that you hate. That's happening a lot. But yeah, crazy times. I could tell you lots of stories about that. And you want to know what it comes down to? I've kind of figured this out. What it comes down to, first of all, is ego. It's an ego problem. It's more than that, but it's an ego problem of always having to be right under all circumstances. You can't just sit there and be quiet and let people go crazy. You gotta be right all the time, and that's not how you win a war. Win a war is to do things kind of like bringing it out. Sometimes I'm a little tougher, but I don't go after people individually like a lot of people want me to, because there's a more sophisticated way to do that and accomplish the goal without dividing people, because dividers will always divide. Liars will always lie. They're not going to change their behavior. You just have to know that that's in their nature, and they're going to do it again. But there's some real problems that have developed with people and their inability of coping, and we're seeing the fallout of it. So I'm trying to explore ways of putting things back together. And you know what? I don't need to listen to the prophets that are out there telling me what's going to happen, because it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to follow God, whether they say one thing or the other. Doesn't matter. Why do we need to know what's going to happen in the future if you know who holds the future? There's the real question to ask right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Faith.
a lack
Great way
of
to put it.
If you have to hang on somebody's every words, it's a lack of faith. It's a lack of a relationship with God that can go forward with no fear in any situation and just say, I don't care which way it's going to go. Papa's got this. It's okay. Doesn't matter to me.
Well, and I think too, to kind of circle back to where we were before, if you can only support people who 100% agree with you, that's how you get so many people that don't vote, and how we get into this mess where the better organized people with a bad agenda get into power because people don't vote for someone that's maybe 95% of the way in agreement with them, or that is they don't consider the fact that other people have different opinions, and you need to listen to them because they might have some wisdom in what they're saying. And perhaps if you would actually listen, you might figure that out. But by blocking them completely out of your life, then you're never going to hear that differing opinion, and you may never actually discover the actual truth.
Well, it's just like with horses. Okay, so I'm going to go back to horses again. Sorry if it offends you. Go listen to somebody who doesn't have horses then. That's okay. I won't be offended by this. And this is another thing, is that people, I'm going to go back to the horse thing, but people take things way too personally. They get offended, and then all of a sudden they start striking out at anyone and everyone. Horses do the same thing. If they're offended, because they get offended, if they're hurt, if they're neglected, if they're not listened to, if they don't feel safe, they will literally become dangerous to every single person around them. That's a person with no faith, and that's a person that is in a state of trauma. People are like that too. So when somebody is striking out, like this gal that struck out at me last night and put me into all kinds of categories of bad things. I should probably read some of her texts, because it was like, there's so many of us that are disappointed in you. Satanists run this world. You're a Satanist, is basically what she said. Okay. And I'm like, well, clearly you haven't been up to speed on what I talk about, but that's okay. So I just kind of pondered it. And then I asked her questions. I'm like, why do you think that I'm in with the 501c3s? Pretty extra sure that anybody that's actually been watching what I talk about, and I do it live, so there's like no misunderstandings here, that it's a bad idea. And the 501c3s need to go away, because that's why our church is closed, because they were told from the powers that be to close your doors and isolate yourself. No respect for that. Okay. And I have no respect for people that are dividers, that honestly, I think President Trump is like that too, is that you keep people near you sometimes because you keep your enemies closer, because you want to see what they're doing. And instead of like throwing them off in the weeds somewhere where they can go gather more friends to subvert what's going on, you want to, and then if you're really doing a good job, you're trying to convert them into a better thought process instead of just running amok out there. Try to give them time to process and talk, and give them time to think about it, and not do these full frontal attacks. That seems to be the MO in the parties, because that's what's happening. It's kind of a low IQ way to approach things. We want revenge. We want a pound of flesh for what they've done. Well, really, the better way to do is, if they don't remember, you're going to have accountability on their behavior always. Once they've made a mistake, they have a high probability of going back to that. No two ways about it. A divider will never sit on any one of my teams ever, 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 because they will continue to try to build their silos to put themselves in a place of power, because they don't have faith in God. And they honestly, that's the only way that they can survive, is to think about being in control of everything. Because if you don't have faith in God and you don't let God control your life, you become what you hate. You become the controller every time, without fail.
More ego than faith.
Yep.
That ego mind is where I've seen all the problems. The heart mind is great. The ego mind gets in the way. And you have to have a little bit of ego in order to be able to do what needs to be done sometimes. But
Right.
there's a limit to that. I know and I recognize that I have an ego, and I know how it can operate. And I've made decisions in the past to check that. Moving from one form of a field into another, where I'm a submissive now because I'm not in charge. I'm new in this field, and I know a lot more about part of it than some of the people in it. But I had to check my ego. There's a specific circumstance I have in mind, but I had to check that and put my listening ears on, and over time build up the right to speak more. And that is something that, we have free speech. Everybody has the right to speak, but there are times where you need to sit down and listen instead, and learn as you enter in. As people are awakening, that could be another problem, because everybody's going to have an opinion, but they're not educated about it. They can see, for example, that Biden has Parkinson's, but are they going to speak the truth about that, or are they just going to go with the new headlines, the latest narrative about it? Are they going to sit back and listen and try to figure out what exactly has been going on, or are they going to jump to conclusions and have an emotional reaction that's not appropriate? Like everything else going on, that's going to happen. And who was it? Somebody was talking about how, as people wake up, we use that phrase loosely. As people wake up, they have this emotional reaction. But if you are there for them consistently, I think it was Burning Bright, had known somebody that said, they would come to them and ask a question from time to time. And I think it was his in-law. And ask him a question from time to time, and he would give him what he thought or what he knew. He might point him to evidence. He might give him an opinion. But he was right enough about it, often enough over time, that the man started coming to him more, and he would throw him memes that were favorable to his perspective, whereas before they were kind of butting heads and clashing on their opinions. But now he's starting to slowly wake up. They have this common ground between them, because there was never a, I'm better than you, I know more than you, just shut up and go away. Instead, it was, I'm here for you when you are ready to come to me for more information or for more thoughts and opinions, to help you think through, to help you prepare. This is why I oppose that concept of I'm a pureblood, because
It's very divisive.
It's very divisive. It was very egocentric. It became a dividing factor. Instead of saying, I'm really sorry that you chose that route, I disagree
Or
with you.
saying nothing. Even saying nothing is the appropriate response, because they've got to sit with what they've done.
Yeah.
And how they process it is just like death. Everybody processes it differently. And all of our, when somebody's in a bad situation like that, we tend to make it worse by wanting to tell them how to process, or this, that, and the other thing. I think one of the stupidest things I ever heard was when I lost my first baby. Somebody came up to me and literally said, "This is just God's way of getting rid of junk."
Oh, wow.
And it's like we can always look for reasons to be offended, but I just kind of, I think the best way to do is sit back and go, you got a lot of learning to do. You have a lot of learning to do. Look at him, pat him on the head a little bit, like a little kid who's still playing with marbles out in the playground, because it's not, because the brains aren't in their head. They lost their marbles. Somebody else has got them, right? And so I guess that's a good analogy. They're still playing on a pretty basic level, rather than somebody who has actually able to learn. I think the higher IQ a person is, the more they're able to work with people that they perhaps don't like, because they're not interacting for their own good. They're secure. They're looking for the good of the others around them and to build a team.
Well, and I think too, you look at that mindset of people have to be perfect, or I'm not going perfectly in line with what I think, or I'm not going to even talk to them or support them. Well, I would ask, did you vote for President Trump? If you are implying that you supported every single thing about him to be able to support him, are you saying that you agreed with the bump stock ban? Are you saying that you agreed with the use of the executive order system and that it shouldn't have been scrapped? You don't have to support. There are certain things about what he did in power that I can't say I agree with, but he's still the best president that we've ever had my entire life.
Yes,
And
we're people. We're not God.
yeah, and he did some amazing things in other areas. So am I going to hold those two things against him and crucify him for that when he did all kinds of other good things? No, of course not. To do that is to, you would never get any progress toward the good. And I'm not saying don't compromise on your morals, but what I'm saying is that not everyone is going to agree with you 100% of the time.
No one is going to agree with you 100% of the time. That's unrealistic.
If you
I
want
don't
that,
even agree
go
with
run.
me 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just don't freaking know. It's like, I don't know. You know,
If you want
My
that,
ego has a problem with itself.
yeah, somebody smarter than me, please step in and take the wheel so I can go back to shoveling horse crap.
but if you
Sorry,
wanted
Ralph.
that, if you wanted somebody that was going to agree with you 100% of the time, why didn't you run?
Yes.
You know?
Oh, and Ralph, you're a genius. Here's my segue. Okay. I'm gonna here. I gotta do it. Sorry. I'm not gonna keep talking, and I'm gonna segue into something that's gonna be just beastly beautiful.
It's 9:58 this morning, you.
Yeah, I've got my other guest.
I know we can do this for another couple hours, but you have
half
scheduled.
day. Did you see I put something out on the bird flu summit? Okay.
No, I didn't see
yeah.
that. I really haven't been paying too much attention to the whole bird flu thing, just because if you have birds, you know that the bird flu is a yearly thing.
Well, what I put out there is this is a plan. They have a plan to put it out there, and I got a hold of their little secret documents, and I threw it on my Telegram channel to tell you exactly, because this is going to be a planned attack, and they even tell you the stages of what's coming. People,
Nice.
You got to smarten up. This is stages. So anyhow, with that said, U.S. Taxpayers Party of Michigan, the Constitution Party, is in fact going to be having our nominating convention in July 27th. And with that said, we're looking for candidates. And so if Randall Terry is our presidential nomination, and he actually has come right out and said, I am here to take votes away from Biden. The ones that will not vote for President Trump, he's going to try to take the votes away from Biden by being a disruptor. I love that. And also to bring the pro-life issue to the forefront. I love that. That's great. But guess what, guys? All politics are local politics or local action equals national impact. If you're out there, call me. I've put my phone number out there, and run for anything. Okay. We vet our candidates fairly decently, because you know me, I'm a pretty anal person about that sort of thing, where I'm going to look at it and go, nope. This is an operative, and this is why, because I will in fact look into their backgrounds and see who they've been standing with and who they've been playing ball with. And if they've been playing ball with somebody that I know is a bad person, I will absolutely make sure that nomination is going to be clean, and that anything that's under the rocks is going to be to the best of our ability thrown out there for God and everybody else to see. Okay. And that's an important thing. That's an important thing. And oh, by the way, back to the Carla Wagner issue. Since we exposed the Axe My Tax nonsense out there, she's gotten pretty quiet, but she did get appointed to a building inspections department. Coincidentally, sounds like the way that they normally do things is give people a cushy government job when they've done something good on the outside. Was Donna Brandenburg right? I'm going to guess, yeah, just by looking at it. But anyhow, come and run for the Taxpayers Party on the Constitution Party in the state of Michigan. Run for anything. School board, doesn't matter. Run for everything.
County commissioner, planning board.
Here's our
drain commissioner.
Bird flu summit. And here's the brochure. They tell you what they're going to do. Preparedness, 1 in birds, 2 in cattles. I'm sorry. These people are flipping idiots. I had to put it out there. We're going to talk about cattles. It's like, okay, I guess we're making up. It's not cattles. It's cattle. Cattle.
Maybe they mean like breeds of cattle.
That is like every farmer out there is looking at this going, you guys are flipping idiots. The detection in pets and response in people. And where does this lead to? I put it all out there. It's all there.
You can get bird flu from your cat because it ate a bird that was.
They workshop and where does this end? With your sorry behinds getting vaccinated again by a clot shot that's meant to kill you. Why are we believing anything that comes out of these lying bastards' mouths? Please, somebody tell me this. Why are we just following along with any information that comes our way going, yeah, line me up for the boxcars, line me up for the gas chambers, line me up for the firing squads or the shots. It's the same thing.
Well, and Karen, you just talked about being able to catch bird flu from your cat because it ate a bird. That can actually happen. But that's something that happens every single year. We get a bird flu that comes in. It's seasonal. You get the songbirds and the migratory birds that carry bird flu up from where they've been in the south up to the north, and we get outbreaks of it up here. This is something we get this every year, and most of it is contagious to humans. But how often do you see a massive summer flu in humans that isn't just basically overblown and made up? Most of it ends up being fairly minor illness when it gets to humans because it's already had to go through several different carriers to get to us.
Next plan of attack right there, guys.
But it's every year. This is not something to be paranoid about or anything, and they're trying to whip up a bunch of fear because, hey, wouldn't you look at it? It's an election year. But this is guys. Every year.
Okay, guys, we're going to have to wind it down because my next guests are here, and I want to get to them and give them their time in the sun here because you'll be back this week, I'm sure. Friday, we have Off the Grid Friday, so we'll be back talking with Karen and Ralph here and beating up reality a little bit, trying to get the truth out there and call out bad behavior when we see it. So there you go. So last words under 30 seconds apiece.
Okay, last word. Under 30 seconds apiece. Go. Those are my last words.
Well, I think mine was I laughed. Keep laughing. There is so much I'm laughing about every day, and that keeps me going.
Yep, don't let it get to you. And with that said, we're going to go to our break, and I'll be right back with Tim Vetter and Marley Hornik. morning and welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the 8th day of July 2024. And I'm glad you joined us this morning. We had it was a fun start to this morning, talking to Ralph and Karen and such. And I want to invite my next guests in and introduce them, Tim Vetter and Marley Hornik. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey Donna, good morning.
Good morning. You enjoying your day today?
Yes, ma'am, as ever.
Well, I'm glad you're here today. I was telling a story, so I had to get up early this morning, bring a stallion over to the vet because we're doing artificial insemination to have another baby here. So kind of excited about today, but a little tired because I was up early. So wanted to let's see where we're at here. I'm going to bring up your website a minute, and we have lots of exciting things to talk about today because I'm looking forward to this Michigan scorecard on how bad they screwed up our elections here, because we know that the cheat was in, the cheat's still in. I hate these people. I'm waiting for the day that they go to Gitmo and have the appointment made with God for what they've done, treason against the United States of America. And so please introduce yourselves and let's start this party.
Sure. I'm Marley Hornik. I'm the CEO of United Sovereign Americans, which is a totally unique organization. It's comprised 100% of volunteers who have decided to audit our election systems based on the principle of election validity, meaning were the elections actually accurate and were they legally compliant? Are they valid? And we always ask the hundreds and hundreds of volunteers who come in, professional skilled auditors who come in as volunteers. We always ask the same questions when we look at a voter registration list by state. We always ask, were the voter rolls accurate at the time the election was administered, which is a necessary principle of federal law to have a reliable election? Were the votes counted from provably eligible citizen voters according to the state's records, which is obviously a principle within the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution? Did the number of votes counted equal the number of voters who voted, which is a simple reconciliation check that all Americans are required to do individually on their tax forms each year. And so why not the Board of Elections? And finally, we examine the election returns and the official records based on the question that the Congress set out this principle of reliability for elections. In 2002, they said these federal elections are so important to get right. We can't have more than 0.0008% error in recording the intent of individual and aggregate voters. And so we asked the question, do the elections meet that standard? And so today, what we've brought in here to discuss is Tim from our USA Michigan team. Tremendous analyst, researcher, and he'll talk about his background. We're going to take a look at what we found when we looked at the Michigan official state records regarding the 2022 midterm.
Hey, Tim, welcome. So what's going on in Michigan here? This place is a dumpster fire for sure. I like your shirt, by the way. The shirt's cool.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm seeing myself on camera now, and I look beet red because we had family day yesterday, 10 grandkids. Oh my gosh, we had a blast. But I didn't. This is not a spray tan. This is a burn. So yes, my name is Tim Vetter. I'm a manufacturing equipment engineer for the automotive industry here in Michigan. I'm very active in world-class technology, and I was the pillar co-chair for digital manufacturing validation. I use data all the time, and some of the latest data technology as well to solve complex process and equipment layout design issues. So production data is real time, and we use that to troubleshoot and validate the throughput, the part quality, the general health of our equipment. I also use data to accurately and virtually fit 3D models of equipment prior to installation. We call those space claim models. We tell the OEMs, give us a 3D model of what you're planning to sell us. I do the actual field work to make sure that it's going to fit using 3D scanners and other technology. if that information is wrong, things are not going to fit. And as we say in the auto industry, no data is better than wrong data.
Agreed. So do you have the scorecard? I wasn't sure exactly what you want me to show today. Is there something that you want me to throw up on screen as a visual, or are we going to talk our way through this?
I am ready to present and move and run with wherever you want to go with things. So I did a lot of
bring
show
up the
prep.
scorecard first. Let's go.
If you want to, can you share your screen, Tim, or do you need me to do it?
I can do it.
I think that would be beautiful. So let's bring the scorecard up. What you do is you hit present and then go to the top and it says window. Oh, beautiful job.
Tim, while you're doing that, would you mind answering a question for me? In the
course.
automotive industry, if you had a 12 to 20% failure rate, how would that be viewed?
12% failure rate? Marley, if we get one part can shut the line down depending on the type of issue with why that part was rejected. So we're talking, this is why we have live data coming off our production lines so that we're able to make sure that if there's any issues that we're correcting them while we're running. This is live production data.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point, and it's such a value about your background. You know, a lot of times the actual researchers and analysts for United Sovereign Americans don't get on the microphone. They're too busy crunching numbers. But Tim's experience is extraordinarily valuable, and he speaks to something that is so important for everyone watching this podcast and everyone considering the work of United Sovereign Americans to think about, which is Americans know how to do a really good job, and there is absolutely no excuse for falling short of that in the most important function of our democratic republic.
When I first looked at what you guys were doing, I thought it was really interesting. And the strategy that you come at with everything for United Sovereign Americans is very different than anything I've seen out there thus far. And I think that we should be talking to everyone and considering things, even if it's not perhaps the scorched earth that some of us want to see happen. There's it's like, I think the way that you've done it is to set it up so that they have to meet your criteria, or that's what the fail is. You're giving them a chance to meet your criteria. And if they don't, then it's removal.
Well, it's a little bit different than that, Donna. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but it's not my criteria, and it's not United Sovereign Americans' criteria. It's the law.
Good point.
Right?
Yes.
So the third sentence of the United States Constitution says it's the people of the several states who shall choose their representatives.
Well
that is,
said. Well
there
said.
is no, there's actually, that comes before defining what Congress's role is. It comes before identifying an executive or a judicial branch. It is literally the philosophical basis of the American founding. There is nothing more important for us to get right in America. So Congress has laid out all of these requirements. They're passed under the necessary and proper clause of Article 1, which is, so basically the entire set of legal arguments takes place inside the original Constitution. This is not even added in the Bill of Rights. The whole entire basis of what is considered necessary to have a reliable election that upholds Article 1, Section 2 is right there. And Congress says, first of all, you have to have accurate lists, because in an election, you just have voters, votes, and counts. That's it. That's all that's ever been in an election. We've had elections for thousands of years as human beings. We've done it with all kinds of different systems, but fundamentally, you can't have an election without voters, votes, and counts. If the voters are out or corrupted, if the list is wrong, now your votes are corrupted and your counts are corrupted. Your certification is corrupted. Your management of data is corrupted. And the worst case scenario may happen, which is that your representation is corrupted.
Well, and I really appreciate the clarification and the correction, because that's what we're here for, is to get to the truth. And I love that. So this is a problem that I've seen a lot of people make, is that they don't state the law. And that's why we're not winning in so many different areas, is that they're not calling out the laws. Now there are other groups that call out the laws. that I think do a pretty good job too. So, but that's what we all have to go back to, is that. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and give you time to talk about this, the two of you, so that help me to understand, and everybody else out there, the significance of your work and what we're looking at here, please.
Well, I'm gonna start, and then I'm gonna pass the mic to Tim, because there's some claims on here that are more or less consistent with the kinds of claims and the kinds of findings and numbers that we have uncovered in other states. So here we are, category 1, were the voter rolls accurate as required by the National Voter Registration Act of 1993? And the answer, as ever, is not by a long shot. But, some of the categories that Tim and his team found are issues where we have voters removed from the list and then they suddenly reappear in the list. Duplicate registrations are statutorily barred, and yet they exist in the thousands in the Michigan state registration list, which is nonsensical. When Congress says it's a requirement to prevent this from happening and no one bothers to do a good job, that's not the same thing as legally compliant. We have, a couple thousand people registered to vote whose registration records say they registered in, say 1984, but you look in an earlier copy of the voter list and they're not there. So we call those backdated registrations. We have 4,000 invalid names, people with names like asterisk and, some other symbols. But then, when I first got on the Zoom or whatever with Tim and we were looking at the results for Michigan, my eyes kind of popped out of my head. And I said, Tim, are you really sure you want to put this number on this thing? Because you see, there's this 57,903,469 votes altered post-certification.
Hey, I like that little circle. You circles and pointers so we know where you're talking.
I
Okay,
know,
that's
that was
great.
cool. I like that too.
That's cool.
And that's a really extraordinary number. And I said, Tim, can you definitely support that? Because I don't, United Sovereign Americans, we don't want to publish something that we can't support unequivocally and unquestioningly in court. Because of course, and I didn't talk about it yet so much, but our strategy with USA is not just to run these numbers, but it's to sue the responsible parties to fix this immediately and instantly before 2024 based on their own data. So
that's 57. You might understand this, 57,903,489.
Yeah. So we're going to have Tim grab the microphone here and he's going to walk us through what does it mean when they try to change history.
And can we go through this line by line too? But yeah, please speak to that.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, let me just set the expectations. I'm ready to go through every single number, go through every level of detail. I'm a detailed kind of guy. We won't be able to cover that in the amount of time. So I'm going to pick and choose the highlights that we want to focus on. Turn my mic on.
No, I said, we'll have you come back on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so because I give people as much time as they want to talk, but I do have an 11 o'clock guest today, so we'll just have you back on again.
Absolutely. So here, what I want to focus on first as an opening statement is what Marley alluded to a little bit further earlier, which was how many errors can there be before you have an issue with your election? It depends on the type of error. So let me give you an example. In the automotive industry where I'm from, if you have your vote switch from in-person to absentee, that's a showstopper. You shut the line down immediately. I mean, that's the kind of an issue that just should never happen, but yet it's happening in our voter rolls. If you have votes that are being relocated, that's a major, major issue. And we got millions of these issues happening in our voter rolls. And I'm going to expose and discuss all of these. So what you see here in my screenshot is that we have laws on the books that says you must maintain vote history for 5 years. And what does that mean? There's different individuals that have different understandings of how that should be maintained. Well, my understanding of maintaining it is that after you certify an election, You should never change vote history. And the reason why I say it that way is your audience, think about your bank account. You have an account and you have all your transactions, your history records, right? Well, your transactions, deposits, and withdrawals are just like your voter history records, right? Your vote history should never change. And if it does change, just one change, for each voter, that's a big issue. I'm going to show you evidence of vote history being added post-certification. It's even not only added, but removed, added back, and removed again. It's very shocking. Of course, I mentioned before, they're switching our vote histories from in-person to absentee and back and forth.
I saw that with the other candidates that were running for governor. I have screenshots of that, of how they switched the candidate's background, and the only one that showed up as voting in person was myself.
Yep. And they are transferring vote history information from one voter ID to another voter ID. If you're following along, I have my list here. Vote history locations are moved from Oakland County to Wayne County, and they're changing these vote history location records so that you can't match them up with the poll books and get this data to align. I'm going to show you just shocking information about how we're able to find duplicate votes. Remember, you only vote one voter, one vote per election. But yet we have duplicates that end up in our statewide voter rolls. And then the more shocking part is when we compare that to the local data, the local clerks are saying, no. We have evidence they only voted one time. So why are they voting two times in the statewide data? We're going to show that. It's just unbelievable. And also, we're going to show how the state corrects these issues after the fact. It's like cleaning up the evidence. And of course, we have vote history scrubbed, and we still have active voters. I even can show you Gretchen Whitmer had her vote history scrubbed. So,
well, I tell you, those people that run for office that they change everything about them because they hide their past a lot of times, and there's a reason for that.
I want to just make one comment on some of the things that Tim is saying. When they certify a federal election and then they edit the same federal election they have certified, they are fundamentally changing the election. They're changing the vote. And that is a very important concept for us to just contemplate that for a moment. They are changing the elections that they are required to maintain immaculate auditable records on for 22 months at a bare minimum. So that's kind of staggering. They're changing history, altering what really happened and altering the intent of the American people. And they've certified these elections as provably and perfectly reflecting the will of the American people. So there is something very deeply corrupt about the practice of editing that post facto.
And Donna, I'd like to add that to what Marley was saying, she just spoke to this slide that I created to talk about the show prep. So our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, she has a very, very high priority to maintain transparency within our voter rolls. And transparency is not a clear word because her understanding of transparency is polar opposite than my understanding of transparency. So what I want to say here is that there's two main areas that I believe in order to have transparency and data integrity, that our election data should always support the process. In the manufacturing world, if your data doesn't support the process, you're shutting down. You can't operate. I mean, I should be able to easily go to my Secretary of State or my local clerk and say, give me a list of voters within 5 years. Give me a list of voters that voted in a certain election. I am nowhere close to being able to simply get a list of everyone that voted. The next main item that I want your audience to know is that our election data for good transparency must be available, accessible, accurate. It should be standardized, properly managed, because the Secretary of State manages our voter rolls. And our data should be timely. It shouldn't take me 2.5 years to get the 2020 election data. And I just tried to get the list of voters from the November 2022 election. It took me over 6 months. And all that data was manipulated and corrupted. And by the way, I even had more accurate voter rolls than the Secretary of State. We'll get into that one. And
what really shocks me is how much they're charging for FOIAs in some instances. I heard one person, it was like 60 grand to FOIA something from a sheriff's department. And I don't understand this. If their system sucks that bad, then they need to trash the current one that they have because their system sucks. And they should be able to have this out there and available at will. We should be able to click it and get it. You can't even navigate these horrible websites that they have for our state. If you want to find something, you almost have to have a course to find what you need instead of here's what I need, click, there it is. You know, as much as Google sucks, the state of Michigan is worse.
I just have to say, these are not their systems. These are our systems. You paid for that. You own it. You bought it. You own it, and they work for you.
Yeah, that we already paid for so many services and what we pay for it through our taxes, and then all of a sudden we're paying for it through their stupid fee system, and they're hidden and disguised compensation for stuff. It's incredible the audacity these people have.
Absolutely. And the reason why I say our data should be free is because we're already paying for all of this through the Secretary of State and our taxes. Ohio and some other states actually make all this data available just as a simple download from the Secretary of State website. And to Marley's point earlier, when you certify an election, you should be meeting certain criteria in order to certify, but then you lock down that certification information. So you lock it down, you maintain it. I'm reading right here. You maintain and you archive. I went and asked my Secretary of State in a FOIA, give me a list of voters from the 2016 election. Can't get it to me. Can't give me any election from the past, nor can they give me a voter roll from the past. So they have very poor archiving records, which I believe is a transparency and data integrity issue as well. Data storage is so cheap. Why they can't hold on to data is actually quite shocking.
It is either negligence by somebody who's a little bit of a low IQ situation there, or it's complicity. Because I'm going to tell you what, that's exactly what happened in Byron Township. When I went down to get information, the clerk here said, I don't know, we got a letter from Jonathan Brader, director of elections, who I have very little respect for. In fact, no respect for this man. And then that he told them to destroy all or to get rid of all of their information. I said, well, where did it go? She said, well, the county, and it went to the state. I said, so you have no information here? No, only a thumb drive. I said, well, what's on the thumb drive? Well, nothing. I said, well, you just told. Then she said, well, we have something. It'll be gone by the next election. And I said, so there's something on the thumb drive. So what do you have? Nothing. I said, so either you have it or you don't. Who wiped the thumb drive and who got rid of all the information here? And why did it go up there? And why did you send this up to the state? And this is happening all over the state. And I said, well, I was told by Jonathan Brader that this was the thing and that they would handle all of it. I said, oh, so you followed a bad order from somebody who doesn't have the right. And this happened all over the state.
I want to inject the reality, the factual reality is that's not negligence, and it's not any of the other things you described. It's election fraud, actually. And I'm not the kind of person, I don't want to drag people out in the square and stone them or something, but the law is very clear about what constitutes election fraud or election misconduct on the part of an official who has a duty to perform certain ministerial functions regarding elections. If they neglect to perform that duty, if they ignore that duty, if they are ignorant of that duty, or if they act against that duty, it doesn't matter. It's all called election fraud. And that is because getting elections right is what holds the United States of America in a peace treaty. It's literally a treaty between political factions. And, you know, right now we can think of the two major factions, but that's not static. And there are other political factions and other ideological groups and everything. And what creates the possibility for Americans to continue as good neighbors despite having intractably opposing views is elections.
Yes.
And the Supreme Court ruled in 1888, and this is still considered good law, that if an election official steps off that tightrope that is strictly defining every single aspect of election administrative process, if they step off what is defined by law as the correct process, that's election fraud. It's not like securities fraud or contract fraud. It's not like any other kind of fraud. You don't have to have conscious malice or malicious intent. You just have to ignore the law. So when they tell us, oh, we can't produce that document, we don't have that document anymore, we forgot to keep a copy of that document, what they're really saying is, I hope these people are stupid enough not to know that they can prosecute me for deprivation of civil rights acting under color of law as an election official who failed to perform a simple ministerial function clearly defined.
I love that. I'm going to just put out the word maladministration also out there, because there's a bunch of people that believe that maladministration is easier to prove, but I'm not an expert on that. I try to take in all information, and if it's different for elections, I'm applauding and I'm cheering and I'm doing the happy dance over here. So let's go back to the information there, Tim. Keep going through this, please, and let's do it line by line, or I guess not line by line today. We'll do that again. But let's show me the significant factors here. We've got about a half hour.
Okay, well, what I would like to do, and Marley, correct me if you have a better approach, I'd like to start high level with Section 3 first. And the reason I want to go with Section 3 first is it starts off with how many votes were in the election, and then it talks about all the different data sources. And that would be a good starting point to better understand Sections 1 and 2 by covering Section 3 first. You agree, Marley?
Sure, go ahead, Tim.
All right. So the first thing is, what was the official vote counts? Now, we're going to talk about two different types of data. We're going to talk about vote counts, and then we're going to talk about the data to support the count. Think of it in terms of your bank account, and you have your balance at the end of the month, and then you have all your detail that makes up that monthly total or monthly balance, right? You have your deposits and withdrawals. So what I have is my little cheat sheet over here, and I can roll with any of the information. I can click and I can pull up this data. So when I click on the link, here I am right here. If you can see the number 4.5 million. So that is still the official vote count. That does not, and it should never change, right? The next thing I want to show everyone is this link right here. This link takes you to, again, the same Secretary of State website. And this data would take me to what's called the poll counts. So I'm going to just, I'm going to choose Macomb County. I'm going to say search. And I can get what's called the poll book totals. Now, what this link is giving you is it's giving you right down to the precinct. See the precinct right here? It's giving you the exact counts, the number of votes, right down to the precinct. And if you go to the bottom, if you scroll to the bottom of the list, it's going to give you the statewide total. See the statewide? That statewide total is 4.497 million votes. So and of course they break it into a county here. There's the county number, there's the state number. Well, what's the first thing you notice? The statewide number for the vote counts here doesn't match the statewide total for the vote counts. That's the public, right off the same Secretary of State website. The numbers don't match, and they should match. So that's not even getting into the data. These are the vote counts. They can't get the votes count correct in it. And of course, I have all the detail to know where the numbers, right down to the precinct, where the numbers are either high or low. Whenever you talk about a differential, it's not always less. It's going to be the sum total of what's greater than and less than to come up with the difference. So it gets really hairy when you go down into the details, which I'm not going to be able to do on this call, but we can go there. The other thing I want to show is that we have what's called the official list of voters. This number right here is 4.486. This was my FOIA for the official list of voters that I got 6 months after the election. And side note, one of my if you see here, this number 511, missing votes. You know where that 511 came from? That 511 missing votes were the number of data votes that I had from the same Secretary of State that was not in their official list. And it's shocking. How can me, a citizen of Michigan, how can I have better records than the Secretary of State? Just hold that thought. And then this number here, 4.482, of course, is less. This is the number of votes that was listed in the December QVF. So the election was in November 2022, December 1st. All records should be in the voter rolls within 7 days. That's one of our Michigan laws. So you would anticipate that that would be the case by December 1st. They're all in there. Actually, unfortunately, they were not. There was a significant, almost 18,000 missing, which is another one of those scorecard items. So what I'm showing here, this is very high level. This is the 2022 election. And this is what the United Sovereign Americans were using this latest federal election as a template to what our demands or our expectations will be for 2024. So you'll see this first number, almost 18,000 votes are missing. These are data votes, all right? So the vote count is over here. The data doesn't support the vote count. That's issue number one. Now, what's going on a month-by-month basis? You got the Secretary of State scrubbing the voter rolls, removing vote history, and they're also adding vote history on a month-by-month basis, all the way even as recent as July 1st.
And this is the vote history. It's not the current voter rolls, it's the vote history, correct?
That is correct.
Wow.
For a certified election, they're changing history wantonly. They're just rewriting through the data, just like Tim is saying. They're not taking voters and, forcing them to morph into another individual. This is data manipulation. And it's continual. They're continually editing historical records.
They're admitting that it was a failed election by changing the numbers right there. You can't change something once a process is done. It is done. It's certified. It's sealed. You don't go back and just, well, this is an inconvenient fact. We're gonna change it.
Well, we don't know if they're admitting that it was a failed election. What we do know is that they're absolutely incompetent and they're violating the law wantonly. And that is the law. All of these laws, again, bring it back up to the top, third sentence of the United States Constitution. This is absolutely unacceptable. And if the American people, if we cannot get it together and come together as United Sovereign Americans and fix this through the courts, they will continue to basically bulldoze our fundamental first grand civil right to choose our representatives and live under laws that which we have consented to.
So I want to highlight something that Jonathan Brader has documented, that, and I continue to get this information, not just from Jonathan Brader, but from other representatives within the Secretary of State. When they give us the data, they continue to state, and I've got it on multiple notices from them through FOIA requests, we can't give you an official list of all the voters because those damn clerks don't give us the data to give to you. So what are they doing? They're throwing all those local clerks, and we have 1,500 jurisdictions. They're throwing every single clerk under the bus when it comes to them uploading their data, which by law should be uploaded within 7 days.
You just proved me right, Tim. I feel so good about this right now because I've said from the beginning, they're setting the clerks up to be the scapegoats for what's going on at the state level.
Absolutely. So what I want to highlight right now is what I'm about to show you is proof positive that it's either 1,500 clerks are delinquent or the Secretary of State at the top of the chain is manipulating our vote history records. How do I figure that out? Is I have every single voter right in here that is either added or removed. All these votes added or removed. And what I'm able to do is I can tell not only when they're added or removed, but if you look right here, if they're added, removed, and added back, and then removed. In other words, they're...
Something that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me just...
Can we go back to your slide, Tim? Great.
This one?
Yeah. Also, I want to go back to this scorecard because I want to bring this to another important point, which we're alluding to, but I'd like to go straight at it, which is, yes, there is an effort at every level of accountability to point the finger somewhere else. However, again, instead of getting tangled into these sibling rivalries, like that's the way I think about it, you know, it's just like brothers and sisters fighting and pointing and throwing food at each other. It's not effective. It doesn't help our circumstance. Go to the law. The second section of the 14th Amendment is absolutely clear. It says who's accountable if a state has denied or abridged in any way the voting rights of its eligible citizen voters. Who's accountable? The state. So it doesn't matter who they want to point the finger at. The United Sovereign Americans litigation strategy follows the law. And it says if the state is accountable, then the state is who we sue. And the National Voter Registration Act says it's the chief election official who is holding the bag. They're the CEO, literally, of elections for their state. And you know how it is when you're the CEO. If something goes awry downstream, you don't just point a finger downstream and say, hey, it's their fault. You're accountable for what happens inside of your business operations, period. And that is the litigation strategy of United Sovereign Americans. It's to say this is a federal right, a fundamental constitutional right. The constitutional documents tell us who's accountable. They tell us where to get redress. So we don't have to go because they're trying to wrap us into petty arguments with local election officials. And then they can decry that we are, aggressive and violent people who are attacking those who are just trying to do their best in a challenging system, right? And the data is constantly changing. I mean, I've spoken to so many of these people and the excuses are ridiculous. Thankfully, as a homeschool mom, I have an encyclopedia of stupid excuses and I can recognize them from a mile away. So this is the issue, which is if we don't focus our frustration and our grievance and our redress, our seeking redress of grievance at the legally accountable authority, We get wrapped into their mess. We get dragged off our rock out into the shark-infested waters, and we lose our country. We hold on to our rock. We tie ourselves fast, unwaveringly to our rock, and they lose. That's it. The state is accountable for this. The state has a duty to protect the voting rights of every single one of its eligible citizen voters, and the state has failed. And the state is manipulating data. And if they're not the ones manipulating data, they are the ones ignoring the fact that their data is being manipulated, which Tim has been showing them with his team for quite some time now. And you, Donna, and many, many others, of course. So they don't care if their data is being manipulated or they're the ones responsible. Doesn't matter. Either way, it's election misconduct, and the penalty is severe.
Let me just quick, thank you, Marley. And to your point, what I want to highlight now, this is very high level in line with section 3 of the scorecard. What I'm attempting to do with this data analysis is I'm taking the actual numbers off of the other scorecards, New York, Florida, Ohio, Illinois, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and I'm showing with the common types of descriptions, can I pull similar data analysis from the other states? So, for example, the voters removed, vote counts removed and added back, double votes added, removed. These votes altered post-certification. You'll see that there's a little bit in Ohio and about 1.6 million documented from Pennsylvania. Quite frankly, some of the other scorecards, they may have some of this as we work together as a team. And by the way, the data team, I got to give a shout out to the USA data team, United Sovereign Americans. These are the best of the best across the nation. And we come together and we talk about this kind of stuff. And it is the highlight to my week, by the way. And in talking to these individuals, they see what we're uncovering in Michigan. And of course, they're going to do their homework to confirm this, but I'm confident that the type of data manipulation we have going on in Michigan is not seen anywhere else in the nation. We have, in my opinion, my judgment, we have the most manipulation. We have the worst voter rolls in the USA. And I support that with the data. This is all of the vote changing, the scrubbing of the way we vote. I could go on about all of this type of information that, as you see here, I highlighted in yellow. It's not happening in the other states, but it is happening in Michigan.
Every single one of them is Michigan's in violation of.
Right. Or it's not, where there are circumstances where it's noticed in other states, but it's maybe not being tracked as well as Tim is tracking it. Because of his particular background, he's just done an extraordinary job of tracking some of the issues that he intrinsically knows are just flat wrong, where other people have tracked other kinds of issues. And then also, one of the issues that we have with USA continually, and I don't mean just United Sovereign Americans, I mean literally the USA, is that the data sets returned are wildly different by state. So it does make Michigan is one of the most auditable states, I would say, which is kind of ironic. I would say New York is the second most auditable state. So hallelujah, because the two states that are in really dire straits in terms of the accuracy and legal fealty of their election administrators.
I got to tell you, I think the head of the snake is in Michigan. I really do, and it's where we need to be looking, because it is not. I've also been saying this for quite a while. I think the head of the snake is Michigan, and people are missing that because they're focusing on some distractions and such. But when you look at how people who really are holding the money, the purse strings, a lot of it comes back to Michigan. There's a lot of true billionaires, of which Donna is not part of that club and will never be asked in because I tell too much truth, And so it's like, but I really think that we're going to find out that this is the head of the snake. Okay, so where do you guys want to go from there?
Well, let me what I would like to also keeping it high level, I'd love to hear Marley's vision for where she wants the data team to go. Because Marley, I'll give you a heads up. What we talk about in our data meetings is so exciting that we got to have that part covered in this segment, which is what are our demands? What do we want to accomplish moving forward? Because our current state is dismal. It is absolutely unacceptable with what we have at this time. So I know the USA group and data team we're working together to make changes down the road. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? I apologize, Donna, for asking the question.
No, that's fine. This is how it works here. This is actually like real news for real people, by real people, the kitchen table. We're just having a discussion here, okay? I asked the questions. I hope you come up with the best ones in the group.
This was not my attempt to interview Marley, but
but that's a good thing because you know each other. So I think it's a perfect.
Well, I think we also truly admire each other. And I agree with Tim. I have such admiration for all the people who are volunteering and helping with United Sovereign Americans. What an incredible group of people and what an incredible initiative. And I want to say that one of our objectives absolutely is to influence policy. And it's not the way perhaps that people would think of in terms of like, oh, well, we want to get, voter ID passed. Well, voter ID already exists in the law. So, or we want to get, we want to say, oh, the voter rolls have to be accurate or they have to clean the voter. Well, that already exists in the law. The issues that United Sovereign Americans are uncovering have to do with all kinds of different aspects of an election. So when we audit an election, we start with registration and we end at certification. And when you have a holistic view of what the outcome, where did you start and where did you end up? There are a lot of questions that end up getting raised legitimately about the entire internal process that took place. For example, the law requires, certain documentation to be able to send a mail-in ballot. And the law says that if that documentation is not present with that mail-in ballot, then that is an illegal or invalid vote. And the only way that it could possibly be counted is if it's cast as a provisional ballot, set aside and individually, uniquely investigated comprehensively. And this investigation wouldn't be tolerated to be allowed by a single person because it's a counting process. They call it adjudication. They call it provisional ballots. What they mean is counting. They're talking about an aspect of counting the vote and determining which votes will or will not get counted. And they have to follow the law. And people have to be able to observe the process. Why do people have to be able to observe the process? Because people cheat. That's why. Because there are cheaters who want to get control. Okay, an election is the only legal way for someone to gain unfettered access to your bank account and legislate a decrease in your cut. I will say that again. They get to decide your cut of your bank account. You're not in control of it. The government is in control of it. This is legalized theft. And if the people in those positions are not authorized provably and duly by the American people for that extraordinary responsibility, then we have a serious problem. We have a lot of problems, but that's like point one.
Sounds like communism to me. They get to decide how much money they take from us and what we need to be happy with keeping and or what they're allowing us to do or have. Sounds like communism.
Right. Well, ideally, it's representation. I mean, you can go back and read Bastiat. It is legalized theft. Mm-hmm. However, we have decided that in the defense of individual sovereignty, it makes more sense to have a nation and design. I mean, our founders were phenomenal geniuses who designed a governmental system that protected individual rights. It's not working right now. I'm not going to go into the long details. I want to try to get to the answer for Tim's question because, people often, well, not too often, but there are people who come and they say, oh man, United Sovereign Americans is a 501c4. That means that if I donate to saving my country, I don't get a tax rebate. And I say, well, how about we fix the country and then we can worry about tax rebates later? I mean, I get it, but this initiative needs funds. But the point that I'm making is that we're a 501c4 because we have to do significant advocacy work. We now have a stack of 21 completely peer-reviewed, vetted, impeccable election validity scorecards from 21 different states in the United States of America, representing over 350 electoral college votes, people. This is a massive population representation. We have over 25 million facially invalid voter registration records being counted and given equal protection under the law, equal voting rights to eligible, valid citizen registration records. And we have instances where we can demonstrate that over 7 million of these voter registrations that are facially invalid voted. So it's not just a registration issue. And a registration issue, just to be clear, each one of those is a felony if it can be proven to be not a clerical error. And Congress said, hey, by the way, this is how many clerical errors you're allowed, which is 1 out of 125,000. So the numbers and the law just don't line up at all. And like Tim said, if that was an assembly line for automotive production, that's a showstopper. I mean,
what about a bank account? What about your retirement account?
But the issue is we will be using this data and this evidence not only for our litigation strategy, which I want to give a brief update. We are filing our appeal to Circuit Court in the state of Maryland tomorrow. And we have our writ of mandamus filed with Bruce Castor Jr., the man who represented President Donald Trump in the second impeachment trial with 48 hours to go after his entire counsel abandoned him. A top tier, phenomenal attorney, an American hero, Bruce Castor Jr. We are drafting and have retained counsel in Ohio and several other states. And we are absolutely moving forward with holding the officials accountable for following the law in the 2024 election. There's more to that. And I know we're kind of like running short on time, but
my other guest is going to be a few minutes late. So we're just going to let you guys use the time.
Okay. The other initiative that is critical for United Sovereign Americans internally. Now we have thousands of volunteers. Actually, we're verging into tens of thousands of volunteers all over the country, bringing our resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election to their local, so their town, county, state, and federal representatives of all stripes. Anyone who's a representative, anyone who's elected to office or holds an authority and a duty in an appointed office gets a copy of this resolution. Say, hey, basically like yes or no, you think our election should follow the law. But we're going to be going to Congress. We're going to be taking this work. We're going to be taking our dream team of extraordinary auditors, professionals that, I mean, I think we started adding like over 800 years of data integrity, professional knowledge within our data team. So that skill set has to be used for the benefit of the American people. It has to be used to restore rule of law and order to our election systems. And the elections are the key that turns every lock in this country. And once we have the election system cleaned up and operating and actually legitimately reflecting the will of the American people, all of the circumstances that we believe are broken are going to start to align. It's not a magic wand, but without this, we will never achieve it. So this is how important people like Tim and the other folks on the data team are to this country right now. And I just implore folks, if you have not yet contributed your time or your treasure to the United Sovereign Americans effort, do not delay. Go to unite4freedom.com, unite4freedom.com, and help us come and be a part of the team, which has many different aspects, not just the data aspect, and that, or at least give us some financial support, because filing federal litigation in our goal is 10 states at a minimum is not a cheap thing to do. Although Castor and our other attorneys are graciously working at significantly reduced rates because they do believe 100% in this mission.
Yeah, Bruce was on here about a week and a half ago or so, and I really, really think Bruce, was it last week? I think it might have been last week. I've lost track of time here. No, it was the week before. No, it was Tuesday, I think. So, but I really think he does a really good job. And now Thursday, the week before the 4th, was when he was on, because you guys were on BNN the next day, I believe. So, or pretty close to it. But so, congratulations on that. And it's really nice to be able to work together with a lot of different people, because we're not looking necessarily for perfection. We're looking for information, and use every weapon we have. And this is an important thing. This is an important thing for all of us to do, is to be able to listen to things and realize that information is information. And that needs to get out there. And I loved it. I was like, yay, get them on Bannon, and let's get this information, because my goal is to go back to shoveling horse crap. Okay, that's my goal. We get this thing fixed. Donna's not going to be doing this in the political realm, because I never wanted to in the first place. I just stood up to fix what was wrong, but not having any ambitions of doing this for a lifelong thing, unless somebody really important asks, hey, we need you to do this job. I'm always willing to do that, but we're going to go home, And so I think that that's the foundation of working together too, is to realize this isn't for glory or anything. It's to restore the nation and move forward as best that we can. And it's important to do that, and then try to pull everybody in along the way that is also working on the same trajectory or close to it, so we can bounce things back and forth off of each other. I think it's important. So,
Donna, if I could add a final thought before we wrap up.
Some more, because our next guest is still not in the wings here, so you can keep talking.
Fantastic. So Marley absolutely covered what I was hoping she would cover, which are the financial resources and the human resources that we need. I just want to quickly talk a little bit more in detail on the human resources, specifically to data, because I'm the data guy with Marley's amazing organization, the USA. I'm a member of the USA data team, and how great it is to work with everyone nationwide. In Michigan, because of our unique situation, we need some additional, this is a call to action. We need a little bit more help. What we do have is amazing. I'm not going to name names, Todd, or full names, I should say. But we also had individuals from the USA data team, an individual from New York come also help not only contribute to the scorecard, but to do what's called a peer review. But that's our small and intimate data team. I would like to see at least 3 more volunteers that have a background in SQL programming. I'd like to have 1 more volunteer who has a background similar to mine. If you're a retired automotive engineer who knows and understands processes, you don't have to be a SQL programmer. I can teach you enough to make you very dangerous. So I'm hoping to get at least 4 more volunteers to enhance and improve what we already got going. We got some great stuff going. We can make it a whole lot better. One of the plans is to have an action plan coming up in August for the August primary. And I'm not going to go into strategy or detail about what we plan to accomplish, but that's going to be the precursor to the November election, where if we can bring some data people on board ASAP, we'll be ready in August. We'll be really ready in November, because if you see what we've done so far, this is nothing compared to what we believe we can accomplish with more talent.
So your plan is to not just provide what's been done, but you have an action plan on what we're going to do to either stop the cheat in 2024. You've got a plan laid out to hold them accountable, so that this can actually ensure a honest election.
Donna, fool me once, shame on you. fool me twice. Where the heck were the American people to protect this country when they came back again for the final kill shot? I'm sorry, but we have to work our tails off. This is grueling, and I totally agree with Tim. We could use some help. We could use more analysts. There are so many kinds of tasks that USA needs filled, and it's not always easy to make that successful. I'm just going to be frank. If someone's coming in with a really amazing skill, be patient and we'll get you integrated. But the real issue here, the final directive is like, if we're not going to do this, then who the heck do we think is going to do it for us at this point? We are deluded at this point and completely just duped if we think that the SAVE Act, which is being passed by congressional representatives who just reauthorized FISA, they just reauthorized domestic spying against American citizens, that the SAVE Act is some kind of actual, legitimate. We already have an identity requirement, and who's accountable for following it is the states. We don't need people to show ID at the polls. I'm not saying it's not a good idea and it wouldn't make the process easier, but we don't have to have that. The states are still accountable. If we enforce the law, then they'll be forced to apply voter ID. Instead of screaming and yelling and butting heads with our neighbors over this, we have to use the law appropriately and correctly to hold the people accountable who are simply failing to do their job, not pass more laws that actually are leading to real ID. It's inane to me.
Yeah, it is. The whole thing is pretty crazy. I'm really looking forward to hearing the action steps to writing all of this, because it's like I love the information. I love the investigation. I like doing the evaluation, seeing what's wrong, but then I also like to see the steps exactly. And I understand sometimes we don't put them out there because we're developing things and that sort of thing. I get that, but I'd love to see the ironclad. This is what's going to happen. We've got this, that, and the other thing going, but the lawsuit thing is a great idea. And I think that that's something that we can all agree on, that if we want, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of a kick in the tail here, because if we want these elections righted, it's the accountability isn't just for those sitting in the seats or those of us who have stepped up to speak, or it's on all of us, even the ones that are sitting at home and opting out to act. Everyone has to get involved and get behind things in order for us to right this nation. We can't just sit back and drink our sarsaparilla or a root beer and go, oh gosh, I hope they do well. Let's see if they fail or not, and then lob from the shadows. We need to get in and we've got to do the work. Doesn't count if you have the right mindset, if you're not willing to do the work behind it to carry the ball on the team. That's an important thing. And I think that that's something that we should all keep in mind, and remembering that we have to work together, and that we should have a mindset of leave no man behind, no matter what we do. If somebody is proven to be I don't know, a proven winner, or somebody that has been in the fight for a long time, remember, pull them along, because if you can convert them over to moving in the direction of taking the nation back, that's really, really important. So, well, thank you for being on. Can you guys give me any last words to this? I love you both, and I'm glad you came on today. I'm thankful that you gave everybody your time and you're willing to talk to everyone. I've got a lot of respect for anybody who steps up to try to right this nation, and think that that's an important thing for everyone to do.
Marley, would you like to go first?
I think we've pretty much covered everything. I invite everyone again to join with us. Join with United Sovereign Americans. That's who we are. We are united. We are sovereign, as granted by our Declaration of Independence, our glorious opening sentence of the American founding. And we are Americans, and we are proud to be Americans, and we are determined to remain Americans. And we need your help, and we need support. We need financial support. And we have litigation again already live in Pennsylvania and Maryland. We're going live soon in Ohio. We're also going live soon in 2 other states representing 94 electoral college votes. And we need your support to do it. That's all I can say. We just need your support and your help to do it. And this is the first step of a multi-layered litigation strategy. At the first stage, we're extending the olive branch, and we're asking the courts just to agree that they are not following the law, and they must. If they don't follow the law, however, if they do not comply after that, then we will have to go after them personally. And there are provisions in federal law that allow citizens to sue officials who have any kind of accountability in this matter, including elections and including law enforcement in particular, to sue for deprivation of rights acting under color of law. And those people, because the right is in Article 1, can be sued personally. This is not about official misconduct. It's personal, and we can go after their personal assets. Again, my job is not, or my desire, and United Sovereign Americans' desire is to get this fixed first and foremost. But if people will not comply, then we have to go after their personal assets, because everything is on the line. And so that's part of our remaining litigation strategy. That's the second step. There's a lot more, as Tim alluded to, and I'm going to keep alluding to, but how many hours do you have?
I got all kinds of time if it means taking back the nation. So there you go. So we'll have you back on again. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to go to a quick break right now, and I'll be back with Melissa. I think it's Frizzle or Frizzle. We're going to get this corrected here, and we'll get this figured out. So I'll be right back. Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 8th day of July 2024. Welcome to our show, and I'm going to get right to my first guest of the third hour here, Melissa Frizzle. How are you?
Hi, Donna. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Did I say your name correctly?
Frizzle, yeah.
Frizzle.
I hear a lot. I hear Frizzle. I get a lot on.
That's what I thought it was when I first saw it. And I'm like, oh, cool. I get to talk with Miss Frizzle today. That's fun. My kids would be so excited.
Yeah.
So how are you today?
I'm tired. I was up till 5 a.m. I was tracking this hurricane barrel last night, since I'm right here in South Texas, and waking up now to try to see if I can get any updates. Looks like we have 1 million without power. And
really?
Yeah, and it looks like we're going to have about almost 100-mile-per-hour winds in downtown Houston here between now and noon. So
wow, well, everybody say a prayer for that whole area and the people that are in harm's way. I think God, please bless them and keep everybody safe. And we ask for your help in these times when troubles come. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So there we go. So, well, what are we talking about today? I'd like you to introduce yourself first, and then we're going to just jump right into this migrant crisis and human trafficking that's happening down at our border, because it's a serious problem. And this is the first time that Melissa and I have ever talked. So, really in person here. So I can't consider this person. So it's all good. So let's explore this a little bit, because I think everybody is, knows kind of what's going on down there, but probably not to the extent that say you do, who's on the ground.
Right. And a little background on myself. So I've spent my career in data analytics, and then in 2017, I got the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mother. Of course, we know what happened in 2018. We all started seeing the writing on the wall. From there, I jumped in activism in New Mexico and bullheaded my way into the New Mexico GOP. I ended up being data manager there, working under Trump's campaign for, I can't even think of it right now, what he tagged it with then. So I was a data manager. I worked as a legislative analyst for the New Mexico House Republicans. I ran for state Senate in 2020 for New Mexico District 8. We all know what happened in the 2020 election. My election was, right there with the madness, and moved back home to Texas in 2021. And, currently I've been boots on the ground, active since 2018, just wherever God calls me. It's the only way I can explain it. When I hear the Holy Spirit say, hey, I need you to go do this, it's okay, I'll go. And that's what led me into the migrant centers. And so I think I sent you the link to the white paper I've started that's on X. And I went out a couple days after Christmas last year. There was a group of us. We heard there were some kidnappings that were occurring at the shelters. And so we wanted to go check things out for ourselves, and took food, water, blankets, because here in Texas, the winters get really cold. Didn't know what we were walking into. And, I walk in, and I was, let's just say, when I initially went in, I was very situationally aware of my surroundings because of what we've been told by the media. We have all these fighting age men, which is true, but going with what we've heard, the rhetoric, I was just very aware, and, trying to, expecting, to be attacked, or expecting, something horrible against myself for being there, which was pretty selfish. But when I get there, it was a completely different story. One of the first families that we encountered was a little young family. Parents had to have been young 20s. And we couldn't communicate. I don't speak any Spanish. So we were using translation apps, and they were asking if there was another refuge somewhere, because they were denied shelter at Catholic Charities. And I'm like, they have a 7-day-old baby out in the cold. And they said they were denied shelter because the baby was born in Texas and was therefore not illegal. And so the entire family, with the little boy who was sick, the mother and the father, were put out in the cold in the middle of downtown San Antonio. That first night, of course, the mothers in this situation, we see what's going on. We see a mother that has no coat. She's freezing to death. We know as women, she's not going to be able to feed that baby, breastfeed that child, if she's that cold, and the milk's just not going to drop. So we left to go a few blocks down the road, go into an HEB, see if we could find a blanket, something for the little boy who had a cold, whatever we could get for them to, get that mother and child, in a state, get them stable. By the time we got back, the traffickers were already leading them to a cheap hotel the other way. So we intervened on that, tried to, ask them if they were okay. Looks like they went with them anyway, because obviously we don't speak Spanish. These individuals that were leading them off did speak Spanish.
And they were traffickers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so with that, I started going back out there, and I went alone. And I would go out there at nighttime, because what we found was, after Catholic Charities shut their doors and locked their doors for the night, that there were a lot of women and children left on the street. There's men out there too, but the women and children, obviously are my concern, especially the children. So I went back out there, started gathering stories from everyone, hearing their side of things, wanting to know what happened, exploring the situation for myself. I was taking blankets back out there. I went out there a few nights, the second night, to cook food for everybody, and, make some warm soup for all these kids and the elders. And so I decided to look up a recipe for a Venezuelan soup, because I was dealing with Venezuelans specifically at this site. And so I get all the ingredients to go out there and cook them a soup. And of course I get out there, translate, and tell them what I'm doing, and they just take everything, pull up a chair, sit down, my queen, you know, and just the whole group is just so happy. You know, that's the first meal they've had in months that gave them any type of comfort. Now,
Do you feel like these people are coming here under duress, coercion, or are they you know, is it promise of a better life, or are they literally being used as human pawns in this little invasion that Biden's got going on?
so I think we have all of the above. Now, I want to be very clear when
So people caught in the crossfire, basically, that are being used. Okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, I want to be very specific on the group that I was dealing with. When I set up, I had the sign of the cross on my truck. I had 2 flags, 2 Orthodox Christian flags on the truck with Christ. And I had the cross on my sweatshirt. So the people that were approaching me were technically approaching the cross. You know, there were quite a few that didn't, but the ones that I dealt with approached the cross. So I like to be very clear with that up front, because, you know, as we dive more into this, you'll find out that the group that I'm dealing with is calling out the bad people in their own group. You know, they started giving me the truth. So this group, they are more from rural Venezuela. My group was coming here because they are living under communism in Venezuela. They were looking for a better life. They cannot feed their families. They cannot feed their children. The most they can make is about $10 a month. And so they...
Maduro's, you know, and everything down there, Maduro's a monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a monster.
They want him gone. Yeah. If Maduro were gone, most of these Venezuelans would likely go home.
He's destroyed that country single-handedly, and that's what happens when you get a self-serving communist infiltrator who works for the globalists in place. That's what we're seeing all over the globe.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, but, you know, they would also tell me that there are some that were coming over trying to take advantage of kindness. In fact, they would protect me and point somebody out. Don't give that person money, because they're just, you know, using kindness to their advantage. They have no intent of doing anything. However, mine did. Now, one thing I don't really share a whole lot of is, you know, because of the stigma behind it, and, you know, people like to judge harshly at times on this, is there was one little family, and I think this is in my paper. I think this was the 3rd night I went out there. There was a little girl. Her name is Aranza. She did about 3 years old at the time. And I saw her. Her family was sitting there. They were sleeping on the curb on the street in San Antonio. And this was in front of an Adam and Eve sex novelty shop on a bus stop. And the little girl, I mean, I am a trauma survivor, a childhood trauma survivor. So the only way I can explain it is survivors recognized each other. And that little girl, when I went up to her and I picked her up, she clung to me harder than my own kids do and would not let go. I let her go sit in the truck with me, you know, and talk to the parents. And, you know, they were up all night because obviously you've got a bunch of sex-focused individuals going in and out of this shop, and here's a little 3-year-old girl sitting.
Why were they sitting there with their child at that location? What was significant about that?
Because Catholic Charities, this family specifically, Catholic Charities put them on the street after the mother, the little girl, Aranza, she did not want to eat the frozen burrito that Catholic Charities gave her for dinner, but she was crying hungry, so mom left the shelter to go find her food. And because mother left the shelter and didn't follow the rules, they were put out on the street. And this is, you know, this was, you know, a lot of families were on the street, and not just for that reason. I'll get more into that later. But on that family, after that little girl clung to me like she did, I let her sit in the truck with me, put on some cartoons. I brought that family home with me because my conscience would not allow me to leave that little girl in the environment as a survivor myself and sensing the things around me that I was sensing, I couldn't do it. And I got a lot of criticism, pushback, not only from fellow conservatives, but from my own family, that was horrible. I'm like, but what would Jesus say to do? What would Christ do in this situation? Would he leave this little girl out here, or would he not? So I brought them home, and in bringing them home with me, I got a lot more information. I got the video footage of their journey here. I got their story of what was occurring back home. And this was right about the time. It was right after we had that border rally. And I started questioning why does Biden want an open border? Why am I seeing this going on? But yet, and I see all this trauma and this tragedy, and mothers coming over here, and now they're on the street with all these kids. Why does he want to keep doing this? And so I started digging down into it, and found that Biden, and this was last fall.
Kid sniffer Biden, the traitor in chief.
Yeah. So Biden made a deal with Maduro last fall to deport Venezuelans. So that was like clue number one. So, okay, why is he focused on the Venezuelans only? And that's because of the numbers. I started researching the numbers and looking to see how many Venezuelans have passed into Texas, into San Antonio. And, just for like a 1 year span, I believe it was about 50,000 just that registered at shelters in San Antonio. That's not the ones that were missed, that came in undetected. That's just for like a 1 year period, how many passed in San Antonio, Texas. And so I started digging a little deeper, about 50,000 of them. And right about the time that Biden made this deal to deport Venezuelans back to Maduro, he also reactivated an Obama-era transportation contract with CSI Aviation. So I started looking further into that. I wanted to know, how much does it cost to deport one individual? Roughly $10,500 to deport one individual, with about 7,000 of that going into the transportation alone. So,
and that's deporting them from Venezuela to the United States.
That's deporting them from the United States back to Venezuela.
Oh, United States back to Venezuela. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So you figure up just the ones that passed in San Antonio that had registered, that this CSI Aviation and all individuals involved with this stand to make, I think it was $530 million just off deporting the Venezuelans that have registered.
So this is like your drug trafficking and setting up a situation where they were pulling drugs in just because they needed to have more money to fund their war effort that's going on, which is money laundering. That's what's going on here. Is so they are making big dollars in the deportation of human beings. That was kind of like when you said that they're deporting. I'm like, okay, is it that they're funding them coming this way or that way? I never put my finger on that they were making that much money off of deporting them back.
I would expect that they're making money both ways, because one thing I found is we've all heard about, people are crossing and being handed money and checks and this and that, and free bus rides, and not the Venezuelans. They're not. In fact, when they crossed in Laredo, or let me back up here. There's people in Venezuela that are working to guide and educate and encourage them to come here.
Recruit.
Okay? And so, there's recruiters over there. And a lot of times these are friends of family. And so there's, they're trying to get in and, push that sense of camaraderie and trust. And so they're telling them, once they get here, here's what'll happen. Here's where you need to go to get to your next destination. And they're finding when they get over here that they were lied to, but it's too late to turn back. Now, the Laredo issue, when they crossed in Laredo, they were to get on a bus who they thought was Greyhound. But while we're being told that we're paying for that bus ride, they had to pay for that bus ride. I believe it was $120 for one ticket that they were having to pay. They paid to get from Laredo to the Catholic Charities shelter in San Antonio. Now look at the
crap.
Yeah. Now I look at the Greyhound rate for that same route, Laredo to San Antonio, and it was less than $27. Who's making that money on this side?
Yeah, these human trafficking organizations that parade as religious organizations, they're despicable. And I'm pretty extra sure that the people that are participating in this little money grab and this human rights violations are going to burn in hell someday, because it's unspeakable. I can't even imagine what's going on here. That anyone would think this is an okay thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they're just going to continue, and I think they're using a lot of our young people in this, especially as workers. What I hear is, you have the young workers, they don't even want to be there because they want to be out partying, so they're just going to do the minimum they have to do to get their paycheck. They don't look into things, they don't question, because everybody's so egocentric nowadays, right? We're all focused on ourselves and how things are going to affect us, instead of looking at the person beside us, or trying to make any connection. And we have all this technology that's disconnected us. So a lot of people just, they're not going to sense, I guess that human interaction, that intuition, you know what I mean? Like being around somebody and being able to sense that, hey, this person may need help, or this person is suffering somehow, and maybe I should look deeper, because that's something that seems like it's in the past in our culture anymore, when it used to be very dominant. But so they got to Venezuela, or they got to Laredo, right? They get to the shelters. Another key finding was that Catholic Charities is not, we've been told we're paying for airfare, but Catholic Charities was denying airfare to families that had kids between the ages, I think it was 3 and 8 or 9. I'm a little tired right now, but it's in my paper. Now, we all know that age bracket is prime age for sick pedophiles. That's going to be the age that they're going to hit, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, these parents are coming over here thinking they were going to be able to get transported to the next place, and being told, well, you can go, but anybody between the ages of 3 and 8, we can't give them airfare. We can't provide anything for them. So you have all these families here, and they're like, well, what do we do with our children? Like, we have to work. We are trying to, send money back home, this and that. And so being, at Catholic Charities and hearing Catholic, and this is a religious-based organization, I think what's happening is they're leaving their kids in the care of these NGOs, because they've been led to believe these are religious-based organizations and they care. And then we see what's happened, with all these kids being put into these detention centers now.
Well, you know what I heard, I know of a few people that are working in human trafficking fighting task forces and organizations and such, and they'll come right out and tell you, they said they used to have doctors and judges and all these people in on these pedophile networks, because they said they'd sew them back up and throw them back out on the street after they were pretty much, physically harmed in horrible ways. And now there's so many kids coming across the border, they don't care. They just let them die.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the other thing on this.
Sick. They're sick.
This CSI Aviation, which is tied to Alan Way, by the way. The other thing that they specialize in, I find interesting, it was a red flag, is they also specialize in organ transplant transportation.
What?
Yeah. So their flights have doctors on board. So I suspect that when these people are being deported, they may not be making it back home.
Okay, this is really crazy, because you know what, that's pretty much what they did in the past, is that they bought up these little aviation companies, and that's how I'm not saying that they're doing it, but I'm saying where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And we need to look into this. But this is historically, there's precedents for this, where they bought up small airlines, and they're trafficking people. So these guys, they're set up for this is nuts. This is so nuts. I'm glad you came on today to talk about this.
Yep. And yeah, it's absolutely insane. It's mind blowing. back to my little family when I brought them here. And initially, I was just bringing them here to help them get off the street and send them to their next destination. You know, help them get there so they weren't out in the cold with that little one. And I get them here, and I ask for the address of where they need to go next. And so they give me the address, and I look it up, and it's the American Islam College in Chicago.
Okay.
And so one person is all like, oh, hey, well, you know, no, they're renting out part of the building. It's fine, this and this and this. Well, then I talked to another buddy who is retired lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps, and he does his digging, talks to his people, and he said, no, what we're hearing is when they get up there to Chicago, they're putting them on a ferry and sending them up the Great Lakes, and they're never seen again.
There you go. There's the connection right there, because I've been saying this for a long time. Michigan is the head of the snake. There's so many islands around Michigan that it's real easy to disappear people here. And not only that, the DNR are protecting 4.6 million acres. They're clear cutting it. They've claimed the mineral rights. They're usurpers that they are. They're claiming mineral rights as well as logging rights and such, and they're clear cutting. But there are so many crimes historically that have been committed around the Great Lakes because nobody thinks of looking there. We're on a border. It's an international border. It's pretty much wide open. You can walk right across. If you cross it, they're not looking for people. And is there anything? Can you tell me about the path that happens after they get on the Great Lakes, and where are they taking them? Because I found something years ago that was really interesting. There were 80 kids that went missing at the border. And miraculously, they found them up here in Michigan. There's an article on it in the care of Bethany Christian Services. I'm a Christian, and I take issue with this whole thing. How is it that 80 kids can go missing, and then all of a sudden they're found up here? And the other question is how many more? If you're going to make a mistake like that, if it is in fact a mistake or if it's intentional, we don't know. But where are these kids going once they hit the Great Lakes area?
I don't know at that point, but what my friend told me was that they're going into the the Islamic trafficking network. So
tell me more about the Islamic trafficking network. Is this a thing?
That one, I have not really taken a deep dive on that one, but from what I'm understanding is they're just one of many. We actually have multiple trafficking organizations operating in our country right now. They're just one, so we can't technically shift all of the responsibility on the Islamic extremists in this matter, you know, because this goes beyond the labels they use to divide us. You know, they hide under all of these labels. I'm going to look into this because this is amazing. Now, I remember years ago that there was something that came up with a house that I believe Huma Abedin owned in the Detroit area. And there was all kinds of crazy stuff that was happening there, including in the area, fetuses being hidden in the ceilings and in coolers and such. And that was Hillary's right hand complicit criminal that she stood by, murdering people that are sitting in the seats. You know, it's like I want to look into this, and I think that this is a trail that everybody needs to look down, because if this is the case, this is crazy. You know, I just found a document. Let me check on this one. It is. I just clicked on this, and this is, oh, great. Johns Hopkins University comes up and such. Combating trafficking in persons in accordance with the principles of Islamic law. But Johns Hopkins comes up, which is another one that's under huge scrutiny, as put out there by Jonathan Cagle. This is interesting. You also look up, here's something else to Google, because this was not in my, and I won't say Google, let's just say web search, because Google sucks anymore.
Okay. They all suck. It's like all of this is surveillance, and it's like, I hope I'm on the top of their freaking watch list on everything, because I'm not going to back down on any of this. I don't give a crap what they do to me. It's like, it's like, put me on your freaking watch list. It'll just be a badge of honor,
Hey.
you idiots.
My thing is, it's like, I know I'm on their watch list, but do they not think that maybe they're on somebody else's?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're on all of our watch lists.
So,
I'm pretty extra sure
I
that
mean, come on now.
there's going to be
Alright.
a come to Jesus meeting here.
There
pretty
is.
quick.
Like I say,
So-
we need to pray for our 3-letter agencies and the people that have a conscience left in those, that they find some courage. So
Yeah, because if you don't, God hates cowards. Okay, what was the other thing you wanted me to look up?
Okay, so where was I going on that one? So Guatemala. This was about a month or 2 months ago. So the Attorney General, I believe it was, in Guatemala, sent a letter to our AG here in Texas, Ken Paxton, for assistance to help in researching the claims of women and children being SA'd in NGO facilities in our state.
Essay, define it.
Sexually assaulted.
Okay, and in the NGOs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? There's a whole lot of here's one, Dallas News. There's a whole lot of information out there right now on the fact that, like, Red Cross, UN, they're proven like 60,000. Okay, come on, let me in here. That this has been going on for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
This has been going on for a long time, people. In the here we go. Hang on a minute. Here we go. I think I got this. Let's check it out. Involved in, because they're going to go where you don't think they're going to go, and where they have access to kids.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but look at the schools. Do you actually know what's going on in the schools when you're not there? Do you actually know what's going into childcare that are corporately owned when you're not there? Do you know what's happening in your church when you're not there? You have no idea half the time with these mega churches who are taking care of your kids. I'm sorry. We're in a different time. This is not time to be naive and stupid.
Yeah. This is why I pulled my kids out and started homeschooling in 2018, because you don't know, and when you do know, they push back on you, and they treat you horribly. That's not so much here in Texas, but in New Mexico, anytime I tried to go defend my kids or stand up for the moral values of my family and let them know, you are not going to teach my children this because this is against my Christian values that I raised my family on. It was just, well, then they're going to start abusing me. So it's like, okay, well, I guess then it's time for them to come home.
So be it. Yeah. I homeschooled my kids, but I was done with it like 36 odd years ago, 30. It was quite a long time ago. I was done with this. I mean, totally done with the whole school. And what's really funny is you don't have to work that hard to keep up with the idiocy in public school. I know a lot of people feel really overwhelmed with it. And you know what? There's so many resources and so many people to help you now that you don't have to sit there and put up with their nonsense. If you feel like your kids are being groomed, and all of this other stuff, let them be kids, and you're going to be fine. A parent is always well suited to teach their children. You just got to have the motivation, and God will provide for you everything you need. So, how much sexual abuse is happening in these in these centers, in these NGOs? I mean, is this a trail we can go down? I wish I had a direct link, a really good one.
And I think that's where it comes into, we have to find a way, like I have, to immerse ourselves with the potential victims, because we can sit and assume and try to pull data all day, but they're going to be the sources of the information. And when I talk to them on this, every family I've spoken to so far, which mine, is probably, a good 30 families I've spoken to, every individual has either been assaulted themselves or watched somebody else be assaulted. In fact, I went to go visit my little family. They're in Georgia now, and the little one was begging to see me and just would not stop talking about me. So a few weeks ago, or about a month ago, I got in the car, drove to Georgia to go see her, and met another one of the families. And this young mother, she's pregnant right now. She's due in September. She has 2 younger ones under the age of 5. And then there was her sister who has a little girl. And then we were sitting there and, using the translation app. And I'm like, hey, I'm trying to get everybody's story out to try and help. So if there's something you would like to tell me about your experience, let me know. And she couldn't tell me right then. She started tearing up. And, she said that once they got to Mexico, that the cartel robbed all of them and proceeded to try to abduct all the children. And so, I'll probably get more information from them. But again, we're dealing with trauma, and this is hard for them to discuss, and we have language barriers. So, the answer to that question again is going to be immersing ourselves and taking a more compassionate approach with some of these families. And I say we focus on the ones with the children, because, it's that group that's being abused more than others, I believe. So,
Well,
not to say that the men aren't, but
the way to solve this is to go after the bad people that are actually doing this sort of thing behind. It's like we can blame it, and I've said from the beginning, this is a planned invasion of our nation. This is historical. This historical precedent for this, that they'll flood a nation with people that overburden the tax system, that overburden things. And it's not saying that every single one of these people is bad. I think overwhelmingly, we have an awful lot of people who are actually fighting age males coming in to create problems. But this is a 2-prong attack going on here. And I always wonder too, it's like when we saw all the caravans coming, there were always semis there. There's no way that a mom with some kids has walked 2,000 miles to get up to the United States. It's not possible. So who's funding this? Do you think that they pick these people up off the street and in like Venezuela and some of these other countries, and are they kidnapped? Did they want to come here, or were they coerced or groomed for?
Again, it's mixed. And so like this, this family specifically, they wanted to come here because they're fleeing slow starvation, which is an actual legitimate asylum claim. But then you also have some that are being forced here. You have prisons that are being emptied. You have all these different subpopulations. And so again, like, how do we determine? It's like, do we just send everybody back? Because then we're risking them getting on the CSI aviation and not even making it back home. Because when I talk to them, I'm like, hey, how do you know when somebody's deported if they actually make it back home? And they're like, they're not. They dump them off in Mexico.
And they recycle them again.
Mm-hmm. So, I think, again, it's each situation is going to be different, but there has to be a way to work with the good people in these groups, because they're fleeing. The same people that they're fleeing are coming here. They don't want them here either. They don't want the bad people in their country here. That's what they're getting away from, and so there has to be a way to work with those that have good intentions to eradicate and identify those populations that none of us want here, and we need to work on getting out. And with the Venezuelans.
This is quite the subject to get into, because I clicked on this and look at this. Pilots asking to help fight human trafficking, and in aviation, this is basically raising the awareness of it, because there are pilots that are stepping up and saying something about it. Wow, I never put my finger on the pulse of this little nonsense, but there's I'm trying to think of. Oh, looks like he froze up. Come back, Melissa. They're going to try to stop her from saying her story. Let's see if she unfreezes here a minute. Hang on a minute. We'll get her on this way. there. We'll see if we can get her. We can get her back on here because they don't want this out there. I'm trying to think of the name of the airline that they bought. Oh, she's going to leave. Come back on. There's a historical precedent. Let me see if I can figure this out while we're talking about this because this is kind of a big deal. I think it was the Vietnam era that I'm thinking of specifically. Let's see if you're coming back on or if they cut her feed entirely. It's very possible. They do not want this information out there, but that's okay. We keep going. Screw them because you know what? Because I don't care. Here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if we can remove her a second, and we're going to do it this way. See if I can call her a minute. Because we at Brandenburg News Network do not stop when things go awry. We just keep pounding through. All right. Set you right up there.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, you're on right now. I'm going to do it through phone because they clearly do not want this information out there. I think there's another airline during the Vietnam War. That they were using it to traffic drugs because there's when you look at the history of everything in the United States, Vietnam, there was an airline. In World War II, there was an airline that they purchased that they were using. The deep state or the how do I say it, paramilitary groups were using in other countries through the CIA. Screw you people, in order to move drugs around because that's how they really funded it. They were running out of money, so they have to do it with drugs and kids and everything else like that. And they literally will buy these small airlines, and you find out later that all the connections run right back to the CIA, the crap in America. The ones that killed Kennedy, the ones that have done all of this nonsense. Hang on a minute. Let me see if I can if I can pull it up right now. I can't believe I can't.
Well, and on the money and the money that's going to individuals crossing, my theory is that yes, we are paying people that cross, but we're not paying all of the people like we think we are. I think the benefits that are being given to individuals at the border, the monetary benefits, are actually to pay the cartel and the recruiters and such.
Well, the cartel works for the globalists and for our deep state. The cartels, a lot of these places have been set up by the CIA and Mossad and all that. And so, I mean, it's nation states who are the terrorists right now that are being using all of these things. I want to see if I can find the name of the airline that they used. In order to fund it. So they're actually the ones that are honestly are funding, that are making sure that this stuff continues on. I got to think what the name of that is. I can't, it'll come to me. Just give me a minute. I'm kind of wishing for a bigger brain right now, which would be good.
Oh, me too. I barely had any sleep last night, so I'm a little scattered this morning.
Yeah.
While you're looking for that, I want to make a point on immigration paperwork.
Yeah.
Because they gave me their paperwork. You know, I asked them to look at it, see what, you know, they're reading, they're signing. And here are my notes. The first one, all documents are printed in English. And after talking to them, none of them understand what they're signing. Number two, while they were told to sign their name to the order of release on recognizance, they said that the documents were not read to them in Spanish like it states. Number three,
yeah,
no Venezuelan I have spoken to knows it is illegal to cross the U.S. border, as they are being advised otherwise at the point of origin and do not understand the documents they are signing and being given. They have stated they signed under duress due to fear and anxiety of not understanding what was happening to them. Number four, they were advised the documents they signed were for them to go to immigration court and that they had to sign the paperwork to get out of detention quicker. Number five, they do not understand that they have signed to waive their right to an immigration judge on the document titled Notice to Respondent, Request for a Prompt Hearing. Number six, said all of this being said, I cannot find any sign that the Venezuelans I've been dealing with have the intent of breaking U.S. or Texas laws. And number 7, after reviewing from a citizen's perspective, the only viable option to ensure this group of Venezuelans coming to legitimately seek a better life is by filing for asylum, which they are clueless about. And again, we have the language barriers. And there was a quote, this was United States Ambassador to Mexico, Ken Salazar, said, "Migrants who enter the country without a valid asylum claim will continue to be deported."
Yeah, so they can recycle them again and again, and watch these criminals, continue to rape them and hurt them on the way, over and over again. Yep. Here, I've got it up. It's Air America. I'm going to read this because I think this is significant, people. I really do. Air America. So you got to understand, it's our government that's been doing all of this nation building underneath the scenes, and it's been going on for decades and decades and decades. Look at this. Air America was an American passenger and cargo airline established in 1946 and covertly owned and operated by the CIA from the 1950 to 1976. It supplied and supported covert operations Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War, including drug smuggling into Laos and also drug smuggling into the United States, because that's how they had to fund their freaking war. And then there was, if you look into Operation Paperclip a little bit and see the Nazis that they decided to bring here, Dulles was involved in it. Dulles was involved in bringing the Nazis here to work and basically have a dark operation, a secondary military paramilitary organization across the world that was starting wars, assassinating people, as well as running the drugs into our country. They were running drugs into our country and everywhere else on the planet in order to fund their little nation building wars to be in control. And they did it. They killed their own people to do it. It's incredible. It's incredible. There was, when you really start seeing what they're doing, it's going to be hard for people to come to terms with the fact that our own country has been killing people for years, and behind all the drug smuggling and the human trafficking and the cartels and everything else, because they're the ones that are playing ball with them across the nation. Hey, look at this. Later, Air America assets was later purchased by Evergreen International Airlines. I'd like to take a look at that. Yeah, there's Hillary's covert name is Evergreen, but they had something to do with that in 1976. You bet your sweet bippy there that they were behind all of this, and the Nazis that they pulled out, because they kept making the boogeyman out of Russia. Boogeyman Russia's bad, so that we poured more money into the military industrial complex to create this boogeyman. And I'm not buying any of this anymore. I'm like, why is it that this went in this direction? I'm going to tell you, they own airlines, and they're like secret programs that they have been working with. And also all these guys that were Nazis in the MK Ultra project were messing with people's minds on, in America to get them to be complicit in their crimes. That's one of the things I keep telling everybody. Question everything, because everybody's lying right now. Everybody's lying. Mm-hmm. Everybody. And so even the people we think are good people, they're in a war. They know they're in a war. War is deception. So you can't believe half of what you hear, maybe 2% of what you hear, because they're trying to win a goal. So I don't know. This is crazy. So yeah,
it's all insane. I mean,
how would
and
you?
Then we have the whole cognitive dissonance. I mean, how do we get out of that? Because even in getting the truth out, it's going to make people uncomfortable, and most people right now don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with it, and so they're just going to deny what's going on, and that's part of what's put us into this situation. So
absolutely, you can't question the Christians, you can't question the Jews, you can't question Islam. When somebody tells me that you can't question any group or that it's a protected group, and somehow it tells me immediately that's where they're committing the crimes, because they don't want us to look there. So they've done a great job, psychological job on people to think, oh, I can't question this. These are good people. Not necessarily. The UN. Let's not question the UN. This was a good thing going on. We want to grab something that's good. Well, you know what? The only thing that's good is God Almighty, and Jesus was the only one that was perfect. And I'm pretty sure he's getting sick of their crap right now. Just saying, you know.
Oh, I completely agree. Because individuals like myself wouldn't be heeding to the Holy Spirit to go do stuff out like this that is so outside, the social norms, if you weren't sick of it.
Well, I want to keep you. So now I got off my obsession with finding the Air America, the CIA's airline, and the one that you brought up also sounds like we've got, let's see, CIA. Let's just change the name around. CSI Aviation. Let's just call it CIA Airline right there, because I'm kind of concerned about this a little bit. I want to see who's actually running this, because if they're doing organ transplant and this is what the kids are being run around on, and they're not getting, then there's an allegation or there's a charge that they're not ending up where they say they're ending up. I'm pretty much extra sure that we better start looking into this.
Well, and that's one point that Christina and I were talking about when I was in Georgia recently. My Venezuelans, I say mine, they were, I asked them, I'm like, so when they're deporting people, where are they going? And that's when they said they drop them in Mexico. Well, Georgia just recently passed a law, and I'll have to look the name of it up, and it went into effect July 1st, I believe. And basically, if the police stop anybody and they suspect that person is an illegal, they will take them into custody. But they say, oh, well, this just because they're illegal does not mean we're going to detain them. So what they're doing is calling DHS, Homeland Security, saying, hey, we have this person. Maybe we picked them up because they were going 5 miles over the speed limit. But we believe they're illegal, so we're going to ask you what we need to do. Well, if you look at the immigration paperwork, any violation of any U.S. law or regulation makes them subject to deportation. So what do you think Homeland Security is going to do? They're going to be like, oh, well, we're coming to get them because now they're in violation of the terms that they signed. And so our question was, what's going to happen to the kids? What's going to happen when the individuals being picked up are on their way home from work and they're on their way to go pick their child up from daycare or somewhere else, and now they're not going to show up? So what's going to happen to those children? Well, we know what's going to happen. They're going to call the police, and then they're going to contact Child Services. And we know that Child Services is complicit and a major problem in all of this. So, whilst people are cheering that Georgia's doing this on one end, nobody's looking at the kids. And another interesting point that I would like to make on that, and seeing that we need to figure out and something on these kids in that situation, is when Christina and I were researching that bill, that night, we both went to bed, said we'll reconvene in the morning. About 3 a.m., I woke up, or I had a hard time waking up from a dream. And in that dream, I was me, but I was a child. And I went into this, it was like a house that had been converted into like an office front. And somehow I got stuck in there and I could not get out. And so I start going through the place. I end up downstairs in this place in the dream, and I start finding bunks of children. And there was a little girl in one of the beds, and she's holding her abdomen and says, I'm about to die from what they did to me. And I see all these other kids in there, and I keep trying to get out. And every time I make my way out to escape in this dream, they capture me and drug me and throw me back in. Well, that absolutely freaked me out. So I got up you know, and I was able to wake up out of that. And I sent a text to one of my priest friends in Romania, a very dear friend of mine, and just to put it out there. Well, I go back to sleep and I wake up. Tell me why Christina had a parallel dream.
Wow, that's wild.
So I think that was like confirmation that, you know, from above, that this deportation issue involving the children is something we need to dig into. So
That's amazing. You want to try to rejoin again?
yeah, let me
See,
try.
let's see, and then if I'll take you off speaker if you can rejoin sometimes. Well, we got it out there. There you go. Clowns in America, crap in America. There you go. Let's lay it right out there for what's going on. I mean, I really understand why people have a hard time getting their arms around what our own government has done. There we go. I think we got her back on. Oh, are you there? Oh, she's trying to join from her phone. Let's see if we can get. I really understand why people have such a hard time getting their arms around this, because you couldn't, in your worst day, if you're a normal person, you couldn't make this stuff up. It's outside of our realm of comprehension, and I get it. Let's see if we can get her. We're gonna have to do it by call.
It's not gonna let me in.
Nope, they do not want you. They do not want you speaking. Okay, that's the exact reason why we're going to continue to speak, people.
Exactly.
That's exactly
and for
what we
those
do.
of those that don't want me on, all I can say is repent while there's still time.
Yeah, because your time's probably getting short out there. And,
Yeah.
you know, and if you're not involved in this and you see this, you need to say something. So I've got a gal coming on named Ruth Rondon on Thursday, and she was raped the first time at 10 years old. And her story is heartbreaking. And she just got her name, her record expunged, but the cops were passing her around by the time she was 18 years old and pimping her out. And it's really funny. But what I've come to realize is a lot of these places that said, we're here to help. We're here to help. If you got a problem, are you in domestic abuse, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? They're the ones pimping the kids out. And it's the ones that we trust. You can't have blind trust in people or in organizations here, because that's exactly where they're going to go. You've got to have oversight. There's got to be accountability. And when somebody fails, you don't just move somebody from, I don't know, say Haiti, like the Clintons did it to Laura Silsby, and put her out in Idaho in charge of their Amber Alert system out there. Why do you think they did that? It was because they want people in charge of where kids are vulnerable, and they can basically grab them and mine them and take them wherever they want with no accountability. And it's really tragic for all of this stuff going on at the border, because there's a mixed bag. It's just like the politicians that are in the seat. I really believe that there's a lot of them that have been threatened, and their families have been threatened and such. And it takes a real special person that will just say, stick it where the sun don't shine. It's not going to change anything, and stand up to them regardless what the consequences are. And it's almost inhuman characteristic, because we want to protect those that we love. But the problem is that when you give them an inch like that, you'll never be safe.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to enter on my laptop and see if that makes a difference.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, we need to talk about this, because I think that the biggest thing that is come out of this conversation is that it's the whole. It looks to me like the same thing that they were doing in Air America, flying drugs and people and everything else around. And they made a pact with the mafia and some other issues there, in order for them to distribute the drugs and everything. The money was just too good. So they all said yes. Mm-hmm. And they went for the money and they said yes.
Yep.
And they don't care about people. None of these people do. They're just parasites. And they'll always go for the money because they think that's going to make them a bigger person or more important. I'm pretty extra sure they're going to be in the bottom of the heap once they have to face God face to face. It's not going to be a good moment.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, you're all on notice, because if you don't turn around, There's going to be a day of reckoning for all of this. If you go for the money over human beings and over God's earth, there's a day of reckoning that's coming for our human traffickers, for people prayed as Christians under these Catholic services, Lutheran services, Bethany, whatever it is. If they're taking money for moving people around, guaranteed we need to just continue on in this, because guaranteed that is absolutely the definition of human trafficking.
Yep. I'm working on trying to get in here real quick.
Well, this has been a great interview. I'm glad Christina said you need to interview you. This is a great interview. You can come on anytime you want, because this is a huge deal.
Yes, it really is. I mean, and there's so much more to it, and there's so much that needs to be done. And, I'm one person, and have, we need more compassionate hearts in on this, and, to get the truth.
Well, these kids never did anything to deserve this. They're being preyed upon by some very evil people. See if you can jump back on again. Either that, or I can have you back on another time too. That's fine, because they can't cut us off forever. Because, like I told them, you keep coming after us. We've got 2 Tor nodes up, and we know how to set it up. And if they come back again, there's going to be about 100,000 little Donna Brandenburgs out there, and y'all are going to be playing whack-a-mole to shut us up, because we're not going to be silent over this. I want to see where this ends in the state of Michigan, quite honestly, because my guess is that we're going to find it, because I found some really crazy things out there. What would you think about a security organization that is right now running pretty much all the security at a said perceived military base such as Grayling, which has approximately 35 satellite organizations or organized in other states across the United States, which are at the end of 2 tracks, deep in the woods near nothing else? I want you to ask yourself this question. And also other organizations, such as a couple of them that we mentioned today, perhaps one in the state of Michigan, who has about 30 some odd other organizations in other states that they've set up as satellite locations, which brings in no money, but they have an entity there so they can do business there. Wouldn't that make you ask a bunch of questions? It does me. And what's the connection? What is in fact the connection? Because there's a connection there. There you go. I think we got it.
All right. Let me get my volume up.
Yeah, there's a connection. When you see that kind of nonsense, guaranteed, I'm not kidding you here, there's going to be there's connections.
All right. I just got sound on. Okay.
Let's see if it works, or if I have reverb on yours. No, it's working.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So it's all, like I said, I walked in just like most of us would, I just use the word situationally aware. But it was completely different. And here's another thing on these NGOs. Now, when I went out there that first night to go feed everybody, I went back out there the next night to go as well and do the same thing. The second night I went to go take food out there to cook, I was approached by San Antonio police officers who told me that I was not allowed to go out there and help those children to feed anybody.
Oh, good job, cops.
Mm-hmm. I was subject to being arrested and kicked off the property for trying to provide humanitarian aid to individuals out in the cold.
So they were allowed to be there, but an American citizen could not.
Right. And these officers were in uniform, off duty, contracted, and taking orders from Catholic Charities.
Do you have their names? Did you get their names of these officers?
I did not. I'm sure somebody has some badges that they took pictures of the first few nights out there.
Oh, I think that would be wonderful to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely wonderful.
Once I started making all of this known in San Antonio, suddenly they start shutting everything down here. And the migrant activity comes to a halt, and Yeah, because it's the truth, and the truth was being revealed, and they don't want that.
So where else are all of these people at? Hey, everybody, I think you should jump on this and let's find out. Let's track this down. Where do is there any indication? I'm going to go back to that again. No other indications on why they're coming through the Great Lakes in Michigan or where they're going? Is it because of I'm going to tell you right now, like a lot of our vaccines are based on organs and cell lines and that sort of thing. A lot of proof that's out there on that.
Yeah. Let me pull, I'm going to pull up my document because there's some information on there.
You can share that too if you'd like. If you want to share it, you go under present and then share your screen.
Okay. Maybe I'll go back up to the top for that here.
You go present and then click on window, whichever window you want to show, and it'll only bring up that one window, not your whole computer. This whole government is so corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why anybody would fight against having, being a huge celebration day, no matter what we have to go through. I mean, when I think about it, think about these kids and these families, and the people are getting crimes committed against them in the cartels and what they go through. And we sit here wanting to be comfy without jumping in and helping. It's a disgrace. We should be fighting every single day, every minute of the day that we possibly can put into writing things here. I'm sure God's going to call us to attention to it, that if we're not working to end this, we're complicit with them.
I have to unlock my screen real quick.
God, please forgive us. Please forgive us and help us to walk through this. This is just horrifying. We're not okay with this. We do not agree with this. We ask for your help, and we ask you to bring this to a complete and sudden halt. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
See if it's gonna.
I wish more people would just come forward and tell the truth of what they know instead of trying to make sure that they don't hurt anybody's feelings or just, this go along to get along crap, I wish there were more people that just stood up and did the right thing.
Right. So it's not going to let me do it, but I'm going to send you the link on X.
You know what you can do? Put it in the private chat. Do you see the private chat? Put it there and I'll grab it there. That's the easiest way for me to put it up.
Okay. Let me get back over here. Yeah, we absolutely have a mess on our hands, and while I'm pulling this up, I'll tell you that I was very blunt with everybody on this, and I let them know that, because they didn't understand why they were being yelled at by Americans when they crossed, people at the border, being, hateful and go home, you're not wanted here, stuff like that, and they didn't really get it. And I explained to them, that our veterans, number one, our veterans, people are hurt because of how our veterans are being treated, and that they've had services taken away and this and that. And they thought that was absolutely horrible. They couldn't believe that is happening. So I proposed some stuff, and I'm like, hey, so let me just ask you this. If we were to put a program together, let's say for our Christian migrants that are here to try to do the right thing, if we put a program together to get you guys mobile, would you be willing to provide the labor to get housing up for our homeless veterans in exchange for a chance for legal citizenship? They're like, absolutely. Absolutely. So,
gotta ponder that a little bit. So yeah. Here we go, because it's not solving the problem. Mm-hmm. And so what do you want me to look at here?
So go down to the bottom.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot on there, but down at the bottom, past conclusion. Okay, so this is where it gets into the CSI aviation and the data that I looked up on. So this would be, what page is this? Yeah, so you have the page with conclusion at the end. Okay, so the page that starts with there have been 40 deportation flights logged in the last 2 weeks. So that's where we start getting into the CSI aviation facts.
Okay, just a minute. It's going to take me a minute, okay? So there's conclusion. Okay, right there?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and tell everybody what you want them to know.
So scroll down a little bit more. Venezuelans.
Well, a lot of them are into they owe the cartels.
Okay, so right there, if you click on those, that's going to provide the links. But this is where we start getting into the CSI aviation aspect of it and what we've pulled up on them so far.
Okay.
I'll pull it up on my end too on X.
Which one do you, this last one, do you want me to go to this one?
Yeah, that's fine. That's the one I was talking about earlier.
Perfect. There we go.
Yeah. So that's where he renewed the contract. Now, on going into the other airlines, below that one, you'll see CSI contracts out to other airlines. And I wonder if that's going to be, there's going to be a link in there to the one that you brought up earlier. So that's iAero Airways, World Atlantic Airlines.
Oh, here you go. Blackstone CEO Steve Schwarzman is a Republican mega donor. There you go. Atlantic, Global X, Omni Airlines and such. Okay, guys, jump on this, will you? I know there's some really important people probably watching this right now. So there you go. Jump on it. Yeah, they probably already know. This is interesting.
Allen Way.
Allen Way. Huh.
So this is where we have a two-headed serpent, right? Because both sides are in on this.
Yeah. Wow. This is amazing. I'm so glad that you brought this forward. I think I want to talk about this some more. But I think this might be a good time to end. Will you come back on again? Because I would love to have an update or on what's going on with all of this, because we're going to have to face this as a nation.
Yeah.
That we're going to have to face these crimes that are going on. And this is such a human tragedy. It's amazing.
It is. And, I think a lot of people fight internally on, America, we have to defend no matter what. And these people are coming over here, but I think we need to take a step back. We are a Christian nation, and we need to go back to that old saying, what would Jesus do?
Well, I think this is, from a strategic perspective, I see this as you better know who your true enemy is. Because that's part of the psyop of all of this, is to create these boogeymen all over the place and threats all over the place, when we need to be going after these people that are actually not only enabling this, making money, participating in this. Same thing with the elections. They've got us fighting the Republicans against the Democrats. It's not the Republicans and the Democrats. It kind of is. It's the leadership that are trying to capture the attention and the loyalty of the masses to give them something to look at. Same thing with human trafficking. Who's doing this? Is it the illegal aliens coming across? Well, some of them, yeah. But you have to do a thorough analysis. You can't just bite at a headline, because there is no issue. There is no issue we're fighting right now that's direct to the point and clear cut, because we're in a war. And in a war, it's never, ever clean in a war. I get asked that question a lot. What would you do in this situation? It's like, well, with the information I have right now, I would do this. well, there's going to be casualties there. Well, you're in a war. You're going to have casualties no matter which way you go. And unfortunately, the process of inaction is still choosing who lives and dies. And I hope that everybody out there is listening to this, because people tend to think that if I act in this way or that way, people are going to die. Well, people are going to die whether you act or you don't act in it, because it's been set up by the bad guys to do exactly that and put you in a no-win situation. That's part of it. That's part of why war is so nasty and it's horrible. The only way you can ever come out of anything like this is to follow God Almighty. And I'm really thankful to know that you're a Christian, because we have to be very clear about the fact that it's God Almighty that's going to lead us out of any of these situations. That's all there is to it. We can't rely on our own understanding, because we're going to be off. The more information we have, we might be completely off, but we may be needing that information in order to go to the next step, so the time is not lost. And God knows what's going on. He's not stupid.
I'm inspired to put a point on that real quick. And I think you, being in as long as you have, can relate to this. A lot of people don't act. I think they hear his call, but they question, and they're like, how is this going to make any difference? Or they do heed to that calling, and maybe they're researching something, or they're going to scout out. They have this, I feel like I need to go view this area, and I don't know why, and one thing that I've seen in this 6 years is when we're called to act, we as humans are accustomed to this instant gratification. And that's been part of this too, is social media over the last 20 years it's put Americans into a state of instant gratification. We see that with the youngers. Like, if they do something, they want to see immediate results to their efforts, right? And I think that's where a lot of people, when God calls them in to act on his behalf and things like this, that they don't get that instant gratification. They don't see how their efforts are immediately benefiting the greater good. And so they step out and they stop because they feel frustrated. But in 6 years, those of us that have continued in this, I can see that if I feel the calling to research something and I put, a week into it and I submit it somewhere and it doesn't get anywhere, not to give up, because everything ends up going full circle. It may not actually have been needed then, but I guarantee 6 months, 13 months down the road, it's going to be needed.
Might have planted a seed. And the other thing is we can't do it for recognition. Doing anything for recognition is a bad plan, because it's never ours anyway. It has to go back to God. Do your job, go back to what you need to do or what you've been working on or something, and stop clawing for the recognition of it. Just, you don't have to say anything. God knows, and he's the only opinion that really matters. But with that said, to your point, it's like we have to be willing to do what God asks us to do without any thought to where this is going to end up. Doesn't matter if he asks us to do something and we never see it again. We may have planted the biggest seed in the garden that you could possibly imagine that's going to yield more fruit than we could ever do on ourselves, that, and God has a way of doing that. I think what I'd like to do, because I'm hoping this to be a blessing, let's listen just for a few minutes to some promises of the Bible, and let's listen to this and get our minds peaceful, because remember, we don't have to be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. God is walking us through this. We have to have the courage to face these things and move forward and protect and defend and set it right, and realize we don't have all the answers, but step by step, God will lead us through that. So let's listen for a minute.
Psalm 27, verse 1.
Oh yeah, here we go. This is kind of funny. We'll give it a minute to process. YouTube's been a little rough on me lately, just put it that way.
They
Which
don't.
is kind of funny. Gotta have you let YouTube get its moment in the sun, because Brandenburg News Network's goal is to put you out of business because of your failures and telling the truth and doing doing the right thing, censoring free speech, etc. Let's see if it decides to come back on. Would you like to pray today? I always end our broadcast with prayer. Would you like to pray, or would you like me to pray?
You can pray.
Okay.
I'll let you pray.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very, very, very much for walking us through any and all situations that are in front of us right now. It's really kind of a crazy time to be alive. And that's the understatement of the millennium. We never expected to go through what we've gone through. We've never expected to see this great evil that just has emerged from out of the shadows, that is willing to do anything and everything in horrible acts and horrible crimes that are being committed. But you know what? We're willing to stand. You tell us what you want us to do, and we're willing to stand because we love you. We love your goodness. We love all things that are full of virtue and honesty and truth and integrity and all those things that fall out of your hands. I ask that you would tear these NGOs right down to the ground, and that there would be no evidence that they ever even existed on this planet, that the ones that have done these evil, horrible things to fall in with a satanic system that is so in control of our government and our social systems and our corporate systems, they need to go away. And we ask that your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We are so thankful that you provide for us every single day. And we can move into these areas and look at what's being done, and then we can move back out of it again and come close to you to have our place of rest. And that's okay. Give us the strength that you have, your strength, because we're not strong enough to do this on our own. None of us are. We don't have the answers. We can't pretend to know all the answers, but we surely can go through and look at the clues that you've given us, so that we can become a little smarter, a little more knowledgeable, a little more savvy to the plans of the evil ones that are here. Because this is incredible. I ask that you would heal everyone's hearts and give them the strength to stand through looking at things and knowing the right thing to do when they're faced with a choice and a decision. We ask that you would help people to stop trying to look at normal people who are just being people that are making bad decisions and demonizing them, and not having they don't have the discernment to pick out what the real enemy is. Please give us the discernment it takes to be able to get to the core of all problems and to know what we're looking at, whether it's a human failing or whether it's pure and intentional evil. We need to be able to see the difference so that we can deal with each group accordingly. We ask that you would continue to bring this forward. We ask that you absolutely would bring any and all of this air traffic that's going on out smack in everyone's face, so that all those people who are committing these evil acts have to stand and face you and face us with what they have done to other human beings, and that you would just bring this to a grinding halt, quick and done with. We ask that you end all human trafficking, and that anyone that's complicit in it is brought to justice for crimes against humanity. And we ask that you would bless the children and help us to know how to deal with these crises, because it's a complex issue right now. It's complex. And I think that designating the cartels as terrorist organizations, and all of these organizations that are being funded by the CIA and everything else, all these paramilitary groups and the ones that are working from the shadows, that you would absolutely throw this out so that everything is thrown into the light and out of the darkness. We thank you so very much that you cared enough about us, that you are walking us through this. And I know you will never leave us or forsake us. I have 100% faith in you, your character. We love you. We have our faith is in you, not in what people say is going to happen, not in all of this trying to predict the future or what's going to happen. We don't care. We don't care. Whatever path that you put us on, we're willing to walk it in your strength and might and power, because it's not of ourselves, it's of you. Just tell us what you want us to do. We lay our lives down to you. All the glory and honor gets laid at your feet. Every single thing at the feet of Jesus Christ, our precious Lord and Savior, the only one who is perfect and who came to die for our sins. He came to die for us. And we thank you that you gave up your only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Help us to always listen to you, follow your call, and stay close to you in all things. We love you so very much. You've been a great friend to us, and we want to be a friend to you. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, we pray. Amen. There you go. And YouTube, check this out. It's still just going around in circles. Going round in circles. Bow, bow, bow.
One day we'll all be writing a book on the last 6-7 years.
Yes, we will. And guess what? It's gonna be kind of an epic thing. Let's see if I can get another one going. They don't want that one to play. Screw them all. Let's see what happens. No, it's completely locked this thing down. This was another video. Check this out. This is funny. In your face, YouTube. In your face. Guess what? Brandenburg News Network, I put you on notice, is here to make you irrelevant in your little CIA programming crap going on here. And all of these dark ops that are going on here. I'm going to see, there's a name for it.
So, yeah, he sees you. All you doing this, he sees you. Everything that you're doing.
Yes. Yeah.
Remember that.
I'm gonna bring something up here a minute because I wanna see if I can find a couple other names of things that would be significant for people to be aware of. I'm gonna go through this a minute because I think this is kind of it's a name of an organization that was started in World War II. Let me see if I can find it here.
I'm actually putting your Air America Airlines on my notes to dig into later.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's very interesting. Starts with a G, and I can't think of what it is, but we will figure it out. And but it was started in Italy, and it moved around through being active behind the scenes.
An airline?
No, it was a military group that started a shadow military, and it started in Italy. This is exactly what's happening here, and they did it. I'll put it on my Telegram channel because I need to find out. Need to get I'm having a hard time finding. Most of this stuff's a little hard to find too. You're gonna have to dig for it. If you want the truth, you're gonna have to put the time in. And I'm not saying it to you, but to anybody out there, you're going to have to figure it out and look into. Hang on a minute, I might be able to get it this way.
And I'll say on that note too, don't do your research on Google.
Gladio, Gladio, the CIA's secret terrorist army. Gladio, Gladio. And let me see if I can. Betcha I can find some more. Operation Gladio. Ooh, this is going to be juicy. I'm sure they don't want this out here in your face. Crap in America. There you go. Gladio. Let's see what they put out on Wikipedia. Sometimes Wikipedia is correct. So, code name for clandestine stay-behind operations of the armed resistance that were organized by the Western Union and subsequently NATO and by the crap in America in collaboration with several European intelligence agencies during the Cold War. Although Gladio specifically refers to the Italian branch of NATO stay-behind organizations, it is used as an informal name of its stay-behind operations. And you're going to find out that this whole thing is so tied in together. It's incredible across the United States. Look this up. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out here a minute. My Telegram channel. In your face, crap in America, and anyone that works for the deep state. You can't kill us all. I just got to let you know. You know, they can keep coming after us, but you run out of people who are going to back down from this. So let me there. Gladio, Operation Gladio. There you go. Check it out. Could be real interesting. Good.
So
interesting. Let's find out what's going on in Michigan here. Who's behind the trafficking through Michigan?
Yeah.
And if it's, I think we're going to find out that the churches are all involved in it, because nobody would want their church questioned. Mm-hmm.
And
Or the school. These are good people. Mm-hmm.
well, I mean, and you were talking earlier about another lady that was victimized at the age of 10. And, I'm not slamming everybody, because, there's always good and bad in every subpopulation, right?
Everyone. Yep.
And now I was victimized starting at the age of 4 until I was 16 by my stepfather.
I'm so sorry.
And that being said, we were part of the SBC. And when I told the first time at 8 years old, the church told my mother divorce was the greater sin and that she needed to forgive him. Well, she did as the church told her to do, and it continued for another 8 years.
What's the SBC?
Southern Baptist Convention.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that and that's not going to be everybody, but my experience is that I was treated horribly as a child. I was exiled. They treated me completely different after I spoke up as a child.
That's amazing how that happens, isn't it? Mm-hmm. When you call them out for their bad behavior, and you decide you're not going to put up with it. I had some of that, and they try to discredit you, because people that are abusing children will always deflect in order to make sure that nobody believes the person telling the story.
And like mob mentality to defend one another.
You bet they will, because they're all in it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I mean,
you and I have some great discussions to have offline.
It's the schools too. It's the schools. I mean, even back, I graduated 1995, and at 16 years old, I went to I was at a bus stop and had an old man come up and try to talk me into going out on his boat and taking photos. He's trying to traffic me. I went to the school, to the administrators, scared to death after that happened, and they just laughed at me. I mean, so this has been, like you're saying, this has been going on a long time, and it's infiltrated every aspect of our society. So.
And look what they do. They'll go after families, but they will more typically go after families to take these kids away from families. But then the kids that are really in trauma, they don't do anything. In fact, I know a person that was a teacher here in West Michigan, and she was talking about the trailer park in the school, and she was allegedly a somewhat respected teacher there. And she called those kids trailer trash. Mm-hmm. This is a teacher. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is a bias from somebody who is a very, very misdirected and potentially very evil person. And I really have no respect for that. You start calling kids names and categorizing them that you're in a position of being a teacher or something, they should be immediately dismissed. It's just like the politicians. They should immediately lose their citizenship. These are crimes that require a huge amount of I could go into this on how to hold people accountable, but there are ways to hold people absolutely accountable. And they're going to say, oh, this is too harsh. It's too harsh. Did they care when they were raping children and infants? No, they don't care about this. So why would you care at this point in time and let them go back out and do it again? Not going to change them. Mm-mm. You're not going to change people. They'll be, Hannibal Lecter said the same thing, or Jeffrey Dahmer, you let me out, I'll do it all over again. He said, I'll do it again and it'll be worse. He warned them. He knew what he was. And that's what we have to keep in mind. But there's no mercy for people that touch children. There should be no mercy for them. Yeah. And that's the way it is. Well, thank you for coming on. I love this conversation. Let's dig down in this again and do this again and try to uncover. Let's make them squirm, all of them. Yeah. Let's make them squirm and make them wonder why they made such bad choices in life.
Mhm.
So I think that this is a worthy goal here. I'm going to throw Air America out there on my Telegram channel. Oh, let's just make them squirm. This is going to be really interesting. You want to know who the bad guys are? Crap in America. They're the bad guys.
I'll tell you, I've started using a different browser for searching. I've gone through all of them trying to see which one gives me the best information. And I'll tell you, I looked for the Operation Gladio on Yandex, and it automatically pops up a lot of good credible information instead of the, like Google pushes a bunch of, irrelevant and more opinion-based stuff to the top instead of the facts.
I'm going to see if I can find that let's see. I wanted to find your home where you have I must have taken it down. No, I know where it is. It was in a different browser. Bad. Where is it? There you go. Nope, that's not it either. Let's take that one down. Let's try again. Boys and girls. Here it is.
Operation Gladio. NATO Secret Armies, Operation Gladio, and JFK.
Yep. Pretty extra sure that they've done an awful lot of assassinations, boogeymen, and the whole 10 yards going out there. And look at what they've done to Vladimir Putin. I'm not saying that I'm worshiping or thinking anybody's a good guy at this point in time, but I'm sure as heck saying that I'm not sure everybody's as bad as they want us to believe, because they need that money coming in. This is all about the money that they're making off of drug trafficking, human trafficking. That's exact, because we have a criminal organization running this nation in this world. And so don't put your faith in any of it. Put your faith in God. That's it. That's the only way that you will stand in the day of trials and testing. You have to have your trust in God, not somebody who claims they're a prophet, not somebody who claims they're going to come in and fix all of your problems or telling you what you want to hear. I'm not saying they're all bad, but the only thing that's going to save you is your trust in God. And that's it. It's God Almighty that makes the way. And as long as we have our eyes on him, we can stand through anything, and he will make a way for us. But that's got to come first. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being on today. I'm going to end the broadcast, but just stay on and we'll talk. We're going to do this is where I love talking to people when we get off camera, because then you hear things and you talk about things that maybe just like the bookends to things. And I appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so very much. This is where we go to that part of the show, boys and girls. Go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I want to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, about that. And furthermore, God bless you all. Heart hands. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. This is a wonderful opportunity to be really significant when we face our problems and we find resolutions to them, protecting and defending those without a voice, those who are innocent, and who have no ability to stand up for themselves. That's an amazing thing. Not how much money you have, or how many material possessions you have, or who thinks you're a wonderful person. It's actually working behind the scenes, doing the things that nobody else wants to do, and that you're probably never going to get credit for. That's okay, because God knows, and that's the only one that matters. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Let's see, I've got Sheriff Mack on tomorrow, which will be really fun, as well as John Tater, and I've got one more person coming on tomorrow, and I can't think of who it is right now. I'll kick myself when I get offline, but it'll be on my Telegram channel at Brandenburg4MI, and we'll see you later.
All right, thank you.
Have a great day. Just stay on a minute.